Well, the lights are off, but it is Nights On and Game On here on the Nights On Lights Off podcast. It is episode 7. I'm Will from the Game Escape channel, joined as always by JayShy from ShinMegamiTalks. Jay, how you doing tonight?
Night's been good. Um, Happy to talk some games once again this month. I think it's a long time coming. We got plenty to discuss tonight.
Absolutely. It's been quite the month for me. I've been doing a lot of gaming, very eclectic mix of games this month. How about you?
For me, it's been pretty a little bit of the same. Um, it's been more of a retro kind of couple weeks for me actually. I think it's been like that
Okay.
for you as well, right?
It was because when I got back from Japan, I had those 47 games to play, and I kind of gave it like the old college try. I mean, I'm not gonna say that I beat all of them and put 10, 15, 20 hours and completed half of them. I just, don't have the time for that these days, but I did play enough of each to, I think, at least do an overview video, and I put that out a couple weeks ago and talked about each game, so I was doing that, and then I got kinda sidetracked by a couple things, and I didn't get to finish some of those games. But I figured we'd start with some mystery games because you've been texting me now for a couple weeks saying that you have picked up some mystery PS4 games.
Oh,
And
yes.
and I think this is interesting because on our last episode we talked about sort of Switch collecting, and we were obviously you're big Switch collectors, and we were saying, maybe it's not as valuable. These Switch games aren't as valuable. And
Mm.
then magically you started picking up PS4 games. So what did you get? What are these gems?
Yeah, so before I tell you what I got, so I figure it'd be good to explain why I've been picking up more PS4 games. Um, I've been noticing that PS4 is slowly creeping up in price. I think you've noticed it too, right?
I've seen certain games kind of slowly climb. Yeah.
Yeah, it's slowly going up, and I've been trying to figure out why it's going up, and the only conclusion, well, there's probably about like two or three conclusions that I can come to is that one, there's too many remakes uh being ported to the PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation 5 from the PlayStation 3. So it kind of devalues some of the PlayStation 3 games. The other thing is that with the PlayStation 3, I think PS4, I think a lot of people are looking at it as kind of like the last real PlayStation console to collect for. I think that's one of the other reasons why, a lot of like prices are slowly going up. A lot of people are starting to get antsy, because the PS5, I'm not going to say it's not collectible because I don't know. I don't have a PS5 and I don't collect for the PS5, but it seems like a lot of collectors tend to buy games and play games on the PS5, but they collect for the PS4 and lower. So the market is always shifting in that way. Um, but I did recently pick up two titles. There is another one that I did recently buy that I knew for a fact it was going to go up. It's not here yet, but I'll tell you what it is. And it was the Fist of the North Star Stranger in Paradise. I know you're a huge fan of the Yakuza series, and
Yes.
I like the first thing that popped into my head was I wonder if that game is still cheap. And I looked it up on eBay, and that game is running for full price still, like $50, $60 if you want the original print. If you want the greatest hits version, it's like $20 to $30, but it's creeping up in price. Um, I was able to find a seller selling a brand new copy for $48, so I snagged it. But it's creeping up there. It's getting pretty high. And I mean
It's
it's a licensed game, of course, but it's made by the Yakuza team too.
it was a pretty good game. I remember being very excited about it. I bought it day one, and for some reason, I don't really recall what this reason was, but something was going on in my life where I only played about 8 hours of it or less. And I've
It-
always thought I need to go back to it, and I never did.
yeah, I think I'm around the same point. Like I played 8 hours of it to the part where you kind of do the car driving stuff, and you're riding around in the desert, and you're stopping, bandits from bringing down some type of, camp or something. Um, but I remember enjoying the game, but I just never got around to finishing it. And I remember I sold it when I was selling all my PS4 games, and I think that was a dumb, stupid thing to do because Fist of the North Star. You don't get a Fist of the North Star game often. I should have never sold it, and I kind of regretted it, so I rebought that.
Would you
Uh,
say that it's the best Fist of the North Star game that has come out in North America?
you got me there. I thought if you didn't add the North America part, I would have been like, of course. But um, I did enjoy it. I is it the best one? Because I do enjoy the PS3 one too. What was it, Ken's Rage? That
Ken's Rage,
one,
that was one of those Muso games, right?
yeah,
Those,
yeah.
yeah.
It's a Musou brawler for sure. But um, to come out in the States, yeah. In my opinion, because I did enjoy Ken's Rage, but I really enjoyed Stranger in Paradise. But if you didn't add that North America part to it, I would have automatically picked that 2D fighter that came out. That Fist of the North Star game. What was it on? Was it on Famicom or was it on PlayStation? It was one of
The
those.
There was PlayStation 2, the
PlayStation 2.
2D, yeah,
That one
Arc
is.
System Works game.
Oh
Yeah.
man, that game is fantastic.
That's
Um,
my favorite of all time. I
yeah,
that's why I put the sort of,
that
caveat that
yeah, the asterisks right there. I see what you did there. But if I had to pick, I would definitely pick Stranger in Paradise. I enjoy that game more than I do Ken's Rage.
and
Um,
I think the only other one, right, was a launch game for the Genesis. It wasn't called Fist of the North Star.
the
I'm
2D platformer one, was it? Right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm blanking on the name, but it was Fist of the North Star in Japan.
I never played that one, but I've seen it, but I've never played it. Um, but yeah, you can't pass up on a Fist of the North Star game. Those I think you can't pass up on that and JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Those two series, those licensed titles, you shouldn't pass up. If you see them, you buy them and you hold on to them because they don't get made quite often. Um,
Yes, I picked up the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, like the fighting game
mhm.
for the Series X,
Okay,
and I never opened it because it was on whatever it is, Game Pass. So I played it on Game Pass, but I was like, "Oh, this is pretty good for $15
yeah,
complete. I'll go for it."
yeah. I remember when that game was running. What was it? All Star Battle, I think it was called. That
Yeah.
game was running $80 plus on the PlayStation 3, and I had it forever. And then they reprinted it. I think
Ah.
for the Switch and everything, which is fine. Um, but I heard it's the same game, nothing too crazy. But I still have my PlayStation 3 copy, and I'm fine with that one. But the next game that I bought, I showed you for the PS4 was the Bayonetta Vanquish pack. I completely forgot about that game, and I just got this weird feeling that it's going to be the PS4 version is going to be really really hard to find. And I always tell everyone is when you come across double packs, you of really sought after games that you don't see much, out in the wild, you grab it. And Bayonetta Vanquish was the one I wanted to grab. I didn't play Bayonetta yet, but I played Vanquish, and my God, it looks gorgeous on the PlayStation 4. It looks so good. You have to try it.
Well, I played Vanquish. I had it on the, 360, which I think was the original
Hmm.
platform it came out on,
360 and
and
PS3. Yeah.
PS3, and then I thought I had it on PC or I played it on PC, but then I could not find it on Steam, so maybe I had it on a different service. I used to do, like, Direct to Drive and a couple of others, like, back in the day.
Hmm.
But Vanquish, I was telling you this, kind of a controversial opinion, but Vanquish was my favorite of the Platinum Games
Yeah.
games.
Vanquish is great.
Yeah, I
I
don't
know.
like the others, quite frankly.
Well, I'm kind of the same in your boat. Like I like Vanquish. I know a lot of people like Bayonetta, and I remember I played Bayonetta, and I remember just finishing the game, and then I was just kind of like, did I enjoy that? I'm not even sure if I enjoyed it, but I made it all the way to the end, and I barely remember anything from that game. I should give it another try.
I've definitely played it. I didn't finish it, but like I said, that's because for me, a lot of the Platinum games, like these early ones, I haven't played anything recently, but to me, they were always these amazing set piece battles
Hmm.
that kind of worked like a movie trailer. Like, yes, I'm seeing explosions and jumping but it didn't have, to me, a lot of substance.
Yeah,
And maybe I think I was, when we were talking about it, I was trying to figure out what put me on the track of not liking them. And they did a Metal Gear game. I think it was
Revengeance Rising.
Revengeance.
Yeah.
And I probably came out in the, what would you say, the mid 2000s, but after Metal Gear Solid 4,
Uh, it came out after four for sure, but I would say about 2008, 2009, around there.
2008. Okay. So Metal Gear Solid 4 was one of my most anticipated games. I loved Metal Gear Solid 3, 4 was awesome.
Hmm.
And so I was expecting a true Metal Gear Solid game, and when I played that and it
Oh,
had kinda like these set piece, over the top, crazy battles, I just was like, "This is not the Metal Gear that I want." Who made this? Platinum Games? Ugh. And it just kinda soured it for me, and then they did the Wonderful 101, right?
yeah, they did Wonderful 101. Yeah.
So that was an early purchase for me on the Wii U. Played maybe the first third of the game, and I was just like you were saying, like, I don't think I'm enjoying this. Like, it looks awesome. It has this great
Hmm.
aesthetic. It almost kind of reminded me of a modern Earthbound in a way,
Yeah.
like it,
Hmm.
and so I love that. And then I was playing through, and I'm like, I just don't enjoy the mechanics here. And I played the first Bayonetta, and again, okay, you have this, I don't know what Bayonetta was what, like a dominatrix type lady with guns and cool jumps and lots of violence. Same deal. It's cool to look at, but it just didn't do it for me.
I will say this. I wasn't sure if I enjoyed Bayonetta 1, but I played it enough to finish the game, so I must have enjoyed something about it. But I know for a fact that I hated Bayonetta 2. I did not like that game at all. That game felt like a boss rush game to me. It was from one set piece to another, and to another, and I didn't like it. I Bayonetta 1 feels like a Devil May Cry-ish kind of game where you're running down corridors or you're going to a
Yeah.
place, you fight, angels here and there, and then you get to a boss. And then rinse and repeat. With Bayonetta 2, it was like, here's this giant spectacle, and we're going to give you some enemies here and there, but here's this giant boss, and you got to fight it three times in three different phases. And then you're going to fall into this place, and then you're going to fight another boss, and it's going to be like four different phases. And I was just like, I'm so sick of this game already. And it's only been like, what, the third boss? And I'm fighting it like, I'm fighting a boss for like the 10th time. And I just got tired of it. I didn't finish that one. And I'm very skeptical about getting number three because I just don't want a useless game in my collection. But I remember hearing a story that the reason Bayonetta 2 was the way it was is because I forgot his name, but the guy who did Bayonetta 1, he wasn't really involved with Bayonetta 2. Um he was just kind of overseeing things, making sure things were okay, but he didn't really touch it. I heard he did do some stuff on Bayonetta 3 though. So maybe I might like Bayonetta 3, but I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, I
But
thought Bayonetta 3 was a Switch exclusive, right? At least initially.
yeah. Speaking about that, do you think that Bayonetta 3 is going to be that sought after game because it's locked on the Switch, right? And Platinum is what? Are they even still a company?
I thought they were. I'm not sure, to be honest. I didn't hear that they went out of business or were purchased, but I don't know. I was kind of on the fence about it because I know there are a lot of people who are big fans of Platinum Games and who love Bayonetta,
Hmm.
and if it's exclusive to the Switch, I think it will be somewhat sought after.
I
It's
might
now
have
if
to
and
grab that.
if they went out of business, I mean, even more so.
Yeah, I might have to grab Bayonetta 3, but I'm on the fence about it because I bought that last game that they did on the Switch that I enjoyed, but it wasn't enough to like really keep me playing because there are some control frustrations with it. Um, the one where you Astral Chain. Did you play that?
I did not.
Astral Chain is made by Platinum Games, and the combat is kind of slowed down in terms of like how Bayonetta is, but it's it's so the control functions of it annoys me because you have to control two separate bodies at the same time. So you're controlling the cop that you play as, but you also control basically a persona wrapped around like that's linked to a chain leash or something like that. You have to control them both, and I was just like, I just don't have the patience to try and like get my head wrapped around this. So I just kind of shelved the game until I'm ready to play it again.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm looking
Yeah.
at it right now. Of course, I've heard of it, but I didn't quite know what it was. I was thinking of something else, like
Hmm.
a 2D game, but no, this is, yeah, 3D classic looking Platinum game, but
Yeah.
I
But
never went for it.
back to Vanquish though, I just want to say the game looks great on PS4. I just wanted to say that. I know I said it already, but for the last game, and I said I was gonna keep it a secret until we did the podcast. I picked up a copy of Armored Core 6. This game,
Really?
yes, I picked up Armored Core 6. Um, I think this was the thing that kind of jump shot. I would say it jump started me to actually pay attention to the PS4 and how the prices are going. So I noticed that all Armored Core games they go up in price for some apparent reason. Um, I I'm not entirely sure why, but I think it has something to do with like mech games don't really they have low prints in like America or something. I don't know. But I bought Armored Core 6 on the PS4 and this game is fantastic. Oh my god. If I I've played Armor Core 5, I have Armor Core 5 and I have Armor Core 4. And I have the original Armored Core. And I've played them, but I never played them as much as I played this. And this game is great. It feels like you're in a high powered mech. It makes you feel like you're in a Japanese anime. I hate to quote Otacon here, but it makes you feel like that. It's so good. I definitely recommend this game. Um, this was the one that got me back into like paying attention to the PS4 because the PS4 does have some gems. They're just really hard to spot.
So was now I've never played an Armored Core game. Was this the series that on the original Xbox had like the massive $200 control deck?
No, that you're talking about Steel Battalion.
Steel Battalion. Okay.
Steel Battalion had that, and I think it was Mech Warrior. Mech Warrior had that on the Xbox, the original Xbox, right? It's Steel Battalion or Mech Warrior is one of them,
I thought it was Steel Battalion sounds familiar.
right? Okay, so yeah, it came with foot pedals and it came with two joysticks, and it was like the size of a giant table with all these buttons on it, and you had to operate each and every one, gas pedal and all that stuff. Crazy.
So interesting. So now Armored Core, and I know Front Mission. I've played Front Mission as kind of like the mech game. That's obviously a
That's a strategy
strategy
RPG.
RPG.
Yeah, made by Square. That
So
one's good too.
describe Armored Core. What is this
So
is a third person or
it's
first
a
person
third
game?
no, it's a third person mech very fast paced action game. Um it's made by From Software. So it does have like that kind of I don't want to call it a Souls like because it doesn't feel like a Souls like game because it's strategically mission based and but when you're playing the game uh what's a it feels like a mech simulator, but really good. So you can do different types of movements. So there's regular motions, like when you push the stick up, you kind of walk in place, and then if you press the square button, you do like this thing where your boosters come on, and you kind of slide and hover around the field at a fast pace. But the more you move left to right, and then you press square. You kind of do like boosts left and right, dodging missiles and all that stuff. But it has like this weird Ace Combat feel to it, but with mechs. And it moves a lot faster. The other thing that I really liked about the game that I wasn't really paying attention to until I started messing around with it. So you actually have, even though the game starts you off with a mech, you actually have to build and tweak the mech's components, and it's very intricate because it dives into things like um can your legs handle the weight of the guns, and can your arms hold up the rockets on your shoulders. Then there's uh adding this to your mech will decrease the stability here and all this stuff. It has a lot of that kind of stuff. Um, but then you can add like different components, like cooling components to your jet engines in the back, and different CPU systems in the brain of the mech. It's a lot. And but the thing is that it sounds like I'm saying a lot, but once you start messing around with it, you start seeing all the little bars move left and right, and it just it feels like your imagination can just run wild. So I decided to go on YouTube and look up some of the stuff that people made, and people were building like uh, mechs from animes, and then building their exact components of how they would move in the anime, and it's amazing what some of these people come up with. You got to check it
That
out.
is, yeah, that is sounds fascinating.
Yeah.
I feel like it almost sounds like it has that layer of complexity, but it's accessible. And sometimes
Yes.
you don't want to go through a crazy, I got to read 15 pages of instructions to figure out how these systems work. So that sounds very promising.
You know it's cool. It feels like Have you ever played Need for Speed Underground? Have you ever played that?
Ooh, I've played
Or
a
Gran
couple.
Turismo?
Gran Turismo, definitely, yeah.
Okay. You remember when you would have to like tune your car?
I love that.
It's like that. It's exactly like that. It's
Okay.
basically taking your mech and tuning it. Like it's so intricate. Like the more you're comparing, like what you have equipped, and then like you can look at the lists of things that you want to add to the mech, and then it shows you this is your depletion rate, and when you boost this much, this is how much fuel it takes up. It's so cool. I love stuff like that.
Well, the Gran Turismo system I thought was perfectly done because you would race, you'd get money, and then you'd
Hmm.
think about, okay, I want to get into this championship circuit race, or I just want to make my car into this crazy demon and boost
Yep.
everything, or this car is not going to work with a huge engine. I want to focus on handling. But it was very easy to accomplish anything you wanted to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I always
All right.
found Gran Turismo kind of tough to get into, especially with the whole licensing systems, because you had to get new licenses to go to new races. But I always had my uncle to help me out with that stuff because he loved cars. So, but
Yeah, the licensing thing wasn't great if looking back, because I remember being very frustrated by that. Is it really took some grinding on those
yeah,
licensing tests. But once you got past that, I felt like I've spent, I don't know, I would probably be embarrassed to say how many hours I've spent in all of the Gran Turismo games over my life. It's it's funny. I was actually thinking of playing Gran Turismo, one of them, the one that had the Rainbow Bridge Tokyo circuit,
which one
because
is that?
I think it's the latest one, or it was maybe in 5 and then they redid the track in 7.
Oh wow,
Did I tell you
yeah.
what happened to me on the Rainbow Bridge in Tokyo?
No, you didn't, or you probably did, and I forgot. Wait, tell the new listeners the story,
Yeah, I don't think I
including
would have
myself.
said this last time because it wasn't gaming related, but my wife wanted to do this like go-karting through Tokyo activity.
Oh, I've seen it on the internet. Yes.
So I'm not an adventurous spirit, and I hate tourist trap things, but you know what? Sometimes, as you know, when you're married, you just got to go with it.
Yeah.
So she gets the grand package, and this is, we're not just going to do a couple loops around Akihabara. No, we're going to go out into the far reaches of the industrial districts in Tokyo. and take a go-kart over the Rainbow Bridge into the heart of the city, loop back, go over the bridge, come back. It's like a 3-hour thing. So, to make a long story short, my go-kart was not functional. It had broken suspension and no brakes.
Oh no.
So you're in a formation, there's maybe, I don't know, 10 other people, and we're going, and I'm like, "Ah, something is wrong with this cart. I don't know, of course you're not going too fast. You're just in this industrial district." So I kind of say to my wife, like, "Are you having you having fun? Is there something off about your cart?" She's like, "No, I love it." Okay. So as we're going over, they're like, "Okay, we're going to merge onto the Rainbow Bridge." And I realize at this point, like, okay, this cart is just not handling. It's, wanting to spin out.
Right.
So you're with traffic. There's like 18 wheelers next to you. I'm trying to control this thing, and I have no brakes. And I go through this puddle, and I hit the brakes, and I come like within an inch of smashing into the back of my wife's cart. And
That's not good.
so, yeah, and then you're driving around the city, and you go back over the bridge. And I was so focused on just staying alive that I feel like it was the hardest driving I've ever done in my life. And eventually they were like, "Oh," because every time I hit the brakes, there would be this ungodly screeching that was attracting attention from other motorists and pedestrians. So they swapped out the the cart finally towards the end. But yeah, I thought I was going to die on the Rainbow Bridge. Anyway, now I want to go back and play it in Gran Turismo and just see what I remember.
Well, we're all happy you didn't die. So
Yes, yes,
pluses there.
yeah. So anyway, if you go, do not do not do this activity. And on top of it all, even if you had a functional car and it was great, you're breathing in toxic exhaust fumes for 3 hours
Oh wow.
because you're either behind someone else's go kart that's spewing out fumes, or sometimes you're behind a car, a bus, a truck, and it's not pleasant.
Yeah, that
Save
sounds
your money and buy some video games. All right, rant is over on that.
horrible.
I think though, because we were going to talk about this anyway, and you brought it up in the beginning, PS4 versus PS5, and why does it seem like the PS4 is going to be more collectible? Will the PS5 be collectible? I think it's an interesting topic, and
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah.
kind of like my 2 cents is I don't think we can predict what the PS5 will be. Like, I always feel like collectability is something that you need to do in retrospect and see, like, okay, what is the library, especially what comes out towards the end of the
Yeah,
console's life cycle, like that
yeah.
last 3 years, you start getting the more interesting, creative titles. So I'm not sure about that, but my instinct is, yeah, I think you're right when you say PS4 is the last real PlayStation console. And I feel like the PlayStation 4, if you're into, especially the PS4 Pro, if you're into gaming from, let's say, 2015 until 2020, like, the PlayStation 4 is a good place to play all of those games. They
Yeah.
run well. They're Even though the prices are going up, I still think they're reasonably affordable. And I don't know how many people do this, but ever since I got my PlayStation 5, I play all my PS4 games on the PlayStation 5 because it has that boost mode. It
Mhm.
loads them. You have to get an external hard drive, but I have an external NVMe drive, and I put all the games on there, and they run, it's like buttery smooth. So whether you're doing that on the Pro or the PS5, you can really experience a lot of this library. So I think that's why the PS4 is the winner now, but we'll just have to see what happens with the PS5.
Yeah, I agree. Although, like, I do I brought this to you because I thought it would be a good topic to talk about. Because it is interesting. How some collectors talk about the PS5 in, like, Reddit or other group chats that I frequent with other collectors, and I when I read their comments, it it seems very jumping the gun. Like everyone's just like, oh, PS5 isn't, the collectible console. And the thing is that a lot of the consoles that you're in now, you probably don't have the hindsight to see that the console is collectible in the future. Now, from my perspective, when I look at the PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation 5, um, it's really hard for me to find the gems that are suitable for me, that I would, go, oh, that's something that I want on the PS5. Um, I don't see the gems that I would normally see on the PS4 on the PS5, and I think it has a lot to do with certain games being, and the thing is that I'm excluding games from like limited run or any of those limited places. I'm talking about if you just go to like Amazon. If you just go to Amazon and then you go, all right, I want to find like something that I've never played before on like a gem. Like what didn't you recently buy a game on the PS5? That one looked like a gem. From the Humble Games one. It looked
No,
like
that was the PS4.
that was PS4? Oh, well, there
Yeah.
you go. So, you know what I'm talking about, right? The one that looks like Metroid?
Yeah, which one? It's funny because I was telling you I got some non North American ones, so I've been returning them, but I think that
Oh,
was like
right.
Ghost Soul or something.
Something like that. Yeah, that
Yeah.
that game looked like a gem. But the thing is that it's hard to find those games on the PS5. With the PS5, you just kind of find, the stuff that you find on the PS4 everywhere. You find your what's that game? The one that everybody plays that's like Dark Souls, Elden Ring. You
Elden
find your
Ring.
you find your Elden Rings, you find your Ghost of Tsushima, you find your Final Fantasies, but you don't find like a Hat in Time, like that other game, or um well, Tales of Arise is one game that I think would probably be something I'll buy on the PS5.
A
But
lot of people like that.
yeah, I heard it was good. But that's what I'm saying is like it's from my perspective, it's really hard to find the gems. Like when I'm searching for games for the Switch or the PS4, it's really easy. But for PS5, it's really hard, and it's probably because they cater to a more mainstream market, so that's why it's probably easier to find.
Yeah, I see. I was gonna say, like, when you pose the question, I was gonna say definitively it's the PS4, and I was gonna trash the PS5. And then I realized that that's some prejudice speaking because I feel like the PlayStation 5 primarily, also the Xbox Series X, this generation feels like it hasn't taken off. Like
Yeah,
it was slowed down by the pandemic, and we still haven't gotten those truly, I think, unique games. And
yeah,
then I was going to say, I hate the fact that every time I buy a game for the PlayStation 5, it's got to copy off the disc, download a million things, and it takes a
hmm
while to play the game. But then when I'm thinking about it, well, the PS4 was like that.
some of the
So
games are, yeah, for sure.
yeah, so I don't know if that's going to be a hindrance to collectability. I just kind of think we have to wait. But yeah, there are no gems. Like if I think about it, there are only 3 games that I really was impressed by. The first one was just the built-in game that came with it called Astrobot.
Oh
It
yeah, I heard
was
Astrobot was great.
Yeah, it was just this little, essentially tech demo for the console, and it was one of the most fun, creative games that I've played in the past 2 or 3 years. And then I think they're actually coming out with a full-fledged Astrobot in September,
hmm
so I'm gonna look for that. The other game that I loved was the Ratchet& and Clank. It was a
Okay.
great platformer and then really showed off what the system could do with ray tracing and fast loading and things like that. And then I did think Gran Turismo 7 was a good, beautiful looking Gran Turismo.
Yeah.
But outside of those 3, I really haven't put a ton of
What
time
about
in.
what about that RoboCop game that you were talking about? Wasn't that a PS5 game too? That one looked pretty much good, like a gem. That looked like a gem.
Yes, that was, although I didn't play it on PlayStation 5, I played that one on PC, but it is on
Oh,
PlayStation 5.
I
You
did
should
hear that the RoboCop game is great.
Yeah, you should look at I told you about that website Woot, and I was
Hmm.
perusing that the other day, and they had that on PlayStation 5 at a pretty decent discount. Might have been $30, $25, something like that.
Mm. Yeah,
So,
PS5 needs to. I don't know, man. Like, I agree with what you said, though. It doesn't feel like it took off at all. I, I actually, a lot of the times, I'm not gonna lie, I actually forget that it exists. Um, because almost every game that comes out for the PS5 also comes out for PS4. So I don't really have a need to get the PS4 because I can just grab it somewhere else. But yeah, it hurts because usually when a new console generation happens, everybody is just running to get that new console. So,
yeah, and I think one of the reasons it's being held back is because there's this cross-platform release strategy where if you're releasing it on the PlayStation 4, you're holding back, I think, some of those core technologies that were supposed to make the PS5 unique, like the ray
mm,
tracing and whatever that fast loading system was. You can't do that on the PS4
yeah.
to my knowledge. I mean, you could do HDR, but I'm not a big ray tracing HDR person. I think if you implement these technologies and I can't play it at 60 FPS, I'm not interested. But
Mm,
if all of the games that came out for the PS5 looked as wonderful as Ratchet and Clank and were that polished, I think people would be like, "Oh wow, now I see the difference." But those are few and far between.
yeah. I hope that I think that Sony was trying to do an interesting strategy with the whole you can upgrade thing where you can get a PS4 game and then upgrade it to the PS5. I think that they thought that a lot of people were going to jump on that bandwagon and not a lot of people did. The recession
Yeah,
didn't help either, so.
yeah. Well, I mean, I think there was a scheme where you'd have to pay for it in some cases, right? You could put your PS4 disc in, and then it would tell you, "Hey, we could upgrade this to PS5." And I think in some cases they were charging.
Oh, I did not know that. That's
Yeah,
horrible.
because I remember it early on with some game I tried that I had for the PS4, and it was more expensive. I was like, I'm not paying this. So I don't know what it was, $10, something like that, $15. And it happened to me recently. I purchased Bomberman R2, or is it like the new Bomberman game,
Hmm.
the new series, and I got it on the PS4, put it in the PlayStation 5, and it's like, "Oh, would you like to upgrade?" Cost is 0, but I still had to, like, initiate a PlayStation transaction for $0 to get the upgrade,
Jeez.
and I didn't see anything in particular about it, like, it looked okay, but I didn't give the game a fair shot because I was quite tired. It was one day after work, and I think I, like, fell asleep with the controller in my hand,
Mm.
so I'm not putting that on the list of games played. There was another game I think we both played. I played it on the PS4 a while ago. You just picked it up for the Switch, and that was Tokyo Xanadu.
Oh my god, yes. I didn't think we were going to talk about it, but yes.
I figured since a lot of the times we're not both playing the same game at the same time,
Yeah.
but I think this month we did. So I wanted to get your thoughts on Tokyo Xanadu.
So I this is my third time buying Tokyo Xanadu. Uh I
See,
have it
we're
on the
crazy, folks. We're double
yeah,
dippers, triple
yeah,
dippers.
triple dippers, quad dippers, especially when it's to a series that's so it's a cult classic series, man. It's so good. I have it on the Vita, I have the limited edition for the PS4 and I never played it. I never opened it, so it's still sealed. And then when I found out the Switch version was coming out, I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna buy the limited of that one and play that one. But it's so good. It's uh I was actually kind of shocked that there was no English voice acting though. That kind of shocked me. Was it always like that? Was it always Japanese?
Um,
Because I don't
I
really remember.
I always remember it in Japanese.
Okay, so
But
I'm not
maybe
quite
that's because I deliberately played it, like, I
okay.
and even that I started it recently, like, I don't recall clicking the switch to voices Japanese, so I'm gonna say that it was always Japanese.
Okay. 'Cause I thought it had English, an English dub, but apparently, Axis didn't do that, for this, upcoming release, but the game just reminds me of just how much fun I had with it initially when I was playing it on the Vita, and right now, I'm about 15 hours into the game. How far are you right now?
Probably 10,
Okay.
'cause
Yes.
we went away and then I never picked it back up.
I think I got 2 more characters to get, and then, because I think there's only 7 chapters in the game, if I remember correctly. There's only I think, but I might be wrong, because with this version, because originally I didn't play the EX version, I played the base version. So with the EX version, you get all of the side stuff, and
Yes.
I think the only thing that I can honestly say I kind of don't like, but it kind of grew on me, is like the game forces you to go through the side stuff. Did you notice that? Like every time you finish a chapter, it's like you must go through the side quest to continue the story.
Now that's interesting because I am playing it on PC,
Okay.
and I thought I had the option to skip because asking like, "Would you like to play the side story or move on?"
I don't remember that. I don't have that option.
And I was
Like
al and I would always say play side story because why not?
the side stories are great. I know a lot of
Yeah.
people didn't like them. They just felt like it just uh because a lot of people like to run through the main quest and then do the side stuff later. But it's kind of integral to like character development in terms of like the characters, like because in some of the side quests, the two main leads aren't a part of what's going on, and then the side characters would have to go through the dungeons and handle problems on their own. And there's like bonding moments. It's really cool. For people who haven't played Tokyo Xanadu, it's basically like a Persona school life game with East combat. It's so good. It's
Perfectly
so good.
described.
Yeah, that's basically what it is. It has social links, but they're called something souls.
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
Like soul gauges, because you have to build up the characters, what virtue and humility and all that stuff, and it affects them in dungeons and all that stuff. But it's so cool. It's such a great game. Like the combat mechanic of you having to substitute certain characters in and out of dungeons because certain monsters are weak or strong against certain elements. So much fun. I love that stuff, man. And it's a dungeon crawler. I'm addicted to those things.
Yeah, it's a really I don't know, just a really great dungeon crawler. Like, I feel
Yeah.
the combat, it's that ease combat. So it's quick, it's frenetic, it's well paced. It feels like you said, switching the characters out, building the loadouts for the characters. It all feels very natural and quick. And I think that's what ease is so good at. It makes grinding not feel tedious.
Yeah.
And you're actually excited to go in and play these dungeons.
And
So I think that's its big strength. But it's interesting because I played it. I originally thought it came out in 2018. Apparently, it came out in 2016.
oh, I thought that was earlier than that.
It might have been. I was looking at like it said copyright 2015, and probably for Japan then it came out maybe in 2016 here. But it's been anyway longer than I thought.
Mm.
And since I played it when it initially came out and coming back to it now 8 9 years later, there are some things that kind of bothered me, and I don't know if that speaks to my age
Hmm.
or maybe I just didn't notice it on the first go around, but I feel like the dialogue is extremely long.
Yes. Oh my god, it's dialogue heavy.
Yeah. And it does have a skip option, but I felt like it's maybe skipped too far forward for my liking. Like some
Hmm.
games have that fast forward thing where you just hold down a button and you skip through a little bit,
Yeah.
and then you can kind of determine manually where you want to pick up the story. I think like the this will just jump to some other story point and you miss a lot. So I'm like, okay, well, I do want to see how the story is progressing, but then I'm kind of like, wow, they're just going on and on and on
Yeah.
to the point where like my wife was asking me a question and I just let the game autoplay the dialogue and
And it was still going.
I had a 20-minute conversation with my wife and I came back and it still hadn't, moved on to the dungeon thing that I was supposed to do.
Yeah. I
So,
I had the same. I was gonna actually bring that up to you. That exact same thing is like the game can be dialogue heavy, so you have to find a way to kind of like absorb yourself in the game. And one of the ways that I've found a way to absorb myself into the story and not get bored is that I sit next to my wife when I'm playing it, and she'll watch me play it on the Switch. So she'll look at because my wife likes pretty things that don't look too scary. So when she saw me playing it, she's reading along with me, and it kind of helped for me. So I would definitely say try that.
well, I'm gonna see if I can give that a shot. My wife is not a gamer, although in one of my games, actually, I was playing with her. But yeah, it's
It's
we'll
dialogue
see if
heavy.
I can get her to do that. The other thing, I'm not gonna say it bothered me, but it was just an interesting experience that I had. Is like all Falcon games,
Hmm.
terrific music.
Yep.
I think the music is so catchy, but for whatever reason, the music in this one is, I think, a little slightly simpler than Ease. I'm not a musician,
Yeah, I
so I don't know
agree.
how to describe it, perhaps, but I felt like these were catchy, simple tunes that just went like they got stuck in my head, and they were playing, especially like the city theme,
Hmm.
like when you're going down the side streets and you're in that little Akihabara
Yeah,
plaza place.
that's
That
an addicting tune. Yep.
it is so addicting. I was telling you, we went to a bed and breakfast, a little road trip, and for the entire road trip, that tune, I could not get it out of my head. And then when we got back, I was like, "You know what? It's slowly fading, and I'm regrasping my sanity, so I'm just gonna not jump right back into that one."
Yeah, East. Not East. I'm sorry. See, I got East on the brain right now. Tokyo Xanadu's OST is it's just simple bubbly stuff. Even the dungeon music is kind of like, wait, no, there was one dungeon that had a really good melody.
Yes. Now the
Man,
dungeons, I think, have the best music in the game.
yeah, there is one that sings out to me. I think it's something Garden or something like that.
Oh, yes, yes.
That melody is the best one right now to me. I love that melody. It's so good. It's something garden, and it's like a dungeon with water. It has waterways in it, and it has like rose petals. Oh, it's such a great
Yeah.
tune. Oh man, that one I put on my phone. It's so good.
So I think for the listeners who haven't played it, like, I'm complaining a little bit, but that's all these years in hindsight. I would say that this is one of the few, like, really special games that have come out over the past 10 years. There's just a synergy of all these elements, like, taken individually, whether it's the music, like, the graphics honestly are PS2 era graphics, but they look so clean, and just the camera
Yeah,
work and the smooth frame rate, makes the graphics kind of pop in a way, the perfect feeling combat, and I think it's actually paced quite like an anime,
it
because
is.
after each chapter, they play the theme again.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've ever wanted to, like, really play an anime, it's got that going for it, but woven together, it is a really, really special experience, just like Ys 8.
Yeah.
It's to me, it's on that level.
There's also an extra plus that we've discovered. It's also a pure cart. So we should probably tell people about that one.
This is a term that you coined, and I think it is a very important term in gaming. What is pure carts?
So a pure cart, I'm gonna say we're dubbing it because I pitched it to you and you kind of agreed. So we're gonna dub this pure cart. A pure cart is a cart that as soon as you pull off the wrapping, off of your Nintendo Switch game and you put it into your Nintendo Switch, it does not need to update. If it does not need to update, it is a pure cart.
And
So,
you actually have a labeling system, right? So you have an inventory of pure cart games.
yes, I have a couple. So every time I buy a game that is a pure cart, I take a colored label and I put it on the spine. So it labels every game that I ever put into my system that never needed to update. And as soon as there's an update for it, that sticker is coming off.
Sweet. So actually, what you should do is you should do like a Google Sheets, pure cart inventory,
Oh man, that would be great.
and then we can update it as needed, and you
Here
will
we
be
go.
the source of
Here
pure
we go.
cart information.
Here we go. It's gonna be tricky for me because I mostly import my games, so I'm gonna have to
Oh
find a
yeah.
way. I'm gonna have to find a way because sometimes like the English release would have an update, so
Okay.
we would have to see. But I have a lot of pure cards, a lot. I
Well,
know
this is an imp-
some of the shmups are pure cards too.
well, this is an import gaming podcast, so people should be fine with the Japanese
Okay,
titles.
okay, yeah.
But
Then
I
we should
I love
definitely
it.
do it.
And I mean, the Switch is really the only modern console where you could say that it's pure, right? PS4, PS5, you're never going to get that. You never just put a game in and it plays, to my knowledge.
Yeah, yeah. You're always gonna get some type of update. I'm not gonna lie. When I bought Armored Core, oh my god, that download was insane. It was huge. I think I sat around for about maybe 35 minutes, maybe 40, just letting it install whatever it needed to install on my system.
Wow.
It
Hey,
was horrible.
it's fun. It's funny that you're talking about that. You're talking about how do you get through Tokyo Xanadu? That just jogged my memory. What I would do is I took out like my Nintendo DS and I played Pokemon Conquest while the dialogue was going
Oh
on.
wow.
So
Oh wow.
very few games give you that. And I'm like, yep, yep, yep. Got to go into the Eclipse. Great. I'll let you guys talk. And I've always wanted to play this game, so let me play it.
There is a
But yeah,
there is another game that I started playing too. Also, I should talk about this. Um, when I'm not playing Tokyo Xanadu, I play that Super Nintendo game that I bought. The Afterlife game, the King of Demons game that I
oh yeah,
showed
I
you.
remember that. That was a sweet, sweet collector's
Um,
edition.
I didn't think it was gonna look this good, but it looks amazing. For anyone who doesn't know, Maggio King of Demons is a game that was never released in America, and it finally got an official American release, June 26th. And I after I played it, I understand why I didn't get an American release. It's got swearing, it's got mutilation, it's got demons, it's got some pretty gnarly imagery in it, and man, the stuff that happens to women in this game is just crazy. That it was on the Super Famicom. Um, the game is pretty basic, but its platforming is very fun, very good. So you start off as a human, and when you beat your first boss, the boss drops a gem, and the gem would flash into three separate colors, and depending on what color you get, that you decide to pick, it turns you into a certain demon for the next level. And each demon operates differently. It's such an interesting game. But there is something that I actually figured out by complete accident. Um, there is a segment. Well, I wouldn't say it's a segment. There's a gameplay function in the second level that is unique only to the second level. So there's these enemies that are like these little pods, these alien pods that shoot out these little fairy girls that will shoot beat like little balls at you that will damage you. I found out by accident if you kill one of those little fairies and they fall on the floor and you crouch over one of them, the main character eats their corpse and revives his health. I was like, okay. that that took me away. And then there's like a part in the third level where there's a girl strapped to like these two chains, and these two minotaurs are just beating her. So there's just all this stuff that's in this game that I understand why this game didn't get localized until now.
Imagine if that had came out during those, like, Joe Lieberman hearings
Oh
when they
man.
were talking about Night Trap. This
Yeah.
sounds like it's on a whole other level.
It is, and just the imagery and the backgrounds of some of the levels is insane. But the game is really fun to play. If you can, like, if you can play it on, like an emulator, I would definitely give this game a try. It has really good platforming, but man, this limited edition, I'm gonna start paying attention more to these Afterlife games because after I've unboxed this, it was worth every penny. I probably would have paid more. The fact that they were only paying like selling this for like $50 is insane to me because it's amazing.
Yeah, I passed up on that because I was like, I don't have the means to play or easily play a Super Nintendo game
Hmm.
anymore. My Super Nintendo, Super Famicom stuff is in storage, and
Hmm.
I sold the old Hyperkin, like that multi system. So I was like, I don't know. I don't want to invest in Super Nintendo anymore.
I don't blame
But
you.
I feel I feel like, well, maybe I missed out. But I think it's good advice. Play it on an emulator. I mean, I would assume it's like maybe on Steam as well. Usually those companies eventually put stuff on Steam.
Maybe I'm not entirely sure. I forgot who made this. It's from an unknown company that I never heard of, but
But
um,
the original one would be in a Super Famicom ROM set, definitely.
oh yeah, for sure, yeah, most definitely. But yeah, it's a fun game. I've been playing that every other night because it's that good.
Well, I'm going to look for it and then put it on the old analog pocket and give it a spin.
Yes, do that definitely.
All right. So I've had an interesting month, and I've got some games and I've got some hardware to talk about. And I'll start off with what I've spent the most time with this month, and that is a product called the Saroo Saturn Flash Card. And what this is a basically like a Sega Saturn RAM cart that you get from China, from AliExpress, but it has a built-in FPGA in it and an SD card slot. So this is basically an ODE, like the Terra Onion and the other one they
Hmm.
sell for the Saturn, Fenrir or something like that.
Hmm.
But you don't have to take apart your Saturn. You don't have to take the disk drive out. You just pop it in like you would a RAM cart, stick the SD card in, and it will run Saturn games.
Oh
And
wow.
it runs them pretty convincingly, and it eliminates load times or significantly reduces load times. So if you've ever played a Saturn game, like to me, the classic load time game was the original Don Pachi,
Oh yeah, yeah. Because
where you like
those backgrounds were insane.
the backgrounds were insane. But I think like even if you died and you added credits and you clicked continue, like the whole thing would stop and it would load in the character again. So all that stuff is gone. Like it makes playing the Saturn quick and snappy. Now it's potentially unnatural. Like if you're a pure Saturn person,
Right.
you may find it like, oh, what are they doing? But it doesn't work with all games. Like I experienced some games that would crash because apparently some games need to run at the speed, like the original speed of the CD drive.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But
That's right.
for the most part, it worked with all of my games that I tried. Now, it comes like if you order it on AliExpress. There's two variants, by the way. There's a standard version, and then there's the elite version. And the elite version is all new chips, and then the standard version is like repurposed circuit boards or something. So the difference between the two is like $5 or $10. So get the elite version.
Mm.
And they'll send you an SD card filled with Saturn games. Now, for the most part, these games, like they're all Japanese games, and a lot of them aren't great, especially for like a North American audience. I mean, I love the Mahjong stuff, but I think most people don't want 8 gigabytes of Mahjong games.
No, I think you're the only person that wants that.
Yes. I had to like clear it out, and then you can burn. A while back I started burning some of my Saturn collection, and I just put my games on there, and it was just amazing. And I've always said this, when you're emulating and you can play games in succession. And I know just swapping a game out, like it doesn't take much time, but just being able to jump quickly within a few seconds to different games is very cool. So it's only $70.
Oh,
And if
thank God.
yeah,
Last
well, the
time you
other
tried to pitch me something like this, it was like what, $800? No, that was
well
the
that
retro
was
thing.
that was the retro tank. That was
That was
the
retro.
retro
Okay,
thing.
okay, okay.
So yeah, so for $70, if you're a Saturn, if you just own a Saturn, like you don't even need a collection, right? You could probably find all of these things on the Internet Archive. Like
Mm,
it is worth it because it also has all of the RAM cart functionality, and basically it partitions the SD card for unlimited saves.
okay.
So you never have to like do the thing that you would do with pseudo Saturn Kai or Action Replay where you'd have to like move the game, like move all of
Yeah.
your saves every so many weeks. So it's a really convincing product. The only issue that I've experienced is, and this could be my setup, but it doesn't produce like pure reds. So like if something is a red color, like say
Hmm.
Ken's outfit in Street Fighter 2,
Right.
when it's
Comes off purple.
loading, no, it's red with a couple of like yellow horizontal lines.
Oh, okay. So it's like the pixels won't fill in.
Yeah. Now I have a very interesting setup because I have my main Saturn and then I had this import Saturn in the closet. So I decided to take the import Saturn, bring it into the living room where I have a like a projector screen, and then I took my RetroTink 5X, which I was supposed to sell to fund the purchase of the 4K, but didn't.
Mm,
And I had the SCART cable, so I ran SCART cable to the RetroTink into the projector, and I was playing Saturn games at 120 inches with scan lines activated in the RetroTink, which I didn't realize this. The kind of projector screen I have is a little coarse. So the scan lines coming from the RetroTink almost made it look like I had a giant old school like Sony Trinitron. So it gave that sort of blending effect, and I felt like a kid again. Because as a kid, I would wait until my parents would like go to sleep, or better yet, leave the house for a while, and I would bring my video games down to like the main TV room and plug it into our giant 27-inch television and play the games on the big screen.
yeah, that's
And
the
that's what I
best way to do it.
yeah, that's what I've been doing with the Saturn. It's like, okay, waiting for my wife to go to bed. Okay, she's asleep. All right, going into the living room and playing those games.
Yep.
So that is definitely worth it. The other hardware thing that I was into was I was able to jailbreak the Analogue Duo. So they've released this. I knew it came out like a couple months ago. Basically allows you to load up your Analog Duo with ROMs from the PC Engine, PCCD, all of that stuff. So basically, it makes the Analog Duo like the ultimate mini console, like the PC Engine Mini that came out a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
So I basically have the whole ROM set for PC Engine on there, and all of my CD games and a couple of other CD games that I can't afford. So Sapphire and Spriggan and all of those things.
I
So
have those,
now,
I think. Yeah.
really?
I have Sapphire. I have Sapphire and Spriggan, but I can't play Sapphire. I don't have the for the PC Engine, Turbo Duo. I don't have the, what do you call it? The arcade card.
Arcade card. Okay.
Because you need
Well,
the arcade card to play that.
luckily the Duo sort of has all of that stuff built in. So, yeah, so now I have like the perfect portable complete PC Engine experience.
Nice.
So, a couple of games I've been playing. I'll go through some of the picks that you gave me. The first one was Melty Blood Lumina,
Yeah.
which got the special edition. I actually think you convinced me to get that after our last show.
Yeah.
So
I had to shake you and tell you to grab it.
I did. It's an awesome game. I love Melty Blood. I'm tempted to say that it's the best Melty Blood for me that I've played. I
Yeah,
don't know that I've played all of them.
I feel the same. I feel like I've played two prior to this one, and I feel like this one's the best one.
I played the one on the PlayStation 2. Spent a good deal of time with that and
Mhm.
liked it as kind of like, oh yeah, change of pace type of fighter, but this one is very, very solid.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, it just has like a speed and precision to it, reminiscent of the old Street Fighter games like Alpha or Zero Three, stuff like that. But I'll give it credit. Its narrative is not bad. Usually I don't pay attention to like fighting game narratives,
Mhm.
but there's just something about the writing and the pacing of this where I was able to like I've been playing through each character,
Yep.
trying to go through, get the story for each of them. So it was a very good pick. You also suggested Wing of Darkness
Mhm.
for the PlayStation 4, which again very accurately described as a mecha game mixed with like Ace Combat.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
it feels like a mech game that is a flight simulator almost.
yeah, and it plays, I mean it strikes me as being a little bit more on the arcadey side.
Yeah, for sure.
But that's fine because that's exactly what I'm looking for, and really, really nice sound design and graphics. Like, I was very surprised by the quality of it.
Yeah.
So, 2 really good JayShy picks, and
Oh, wait.
then
Speaking of which, the reason why you probably like that Melty Blood story so much is because it's based off of a visual novel. So that's probably why it's so good. It's based off a visual novel. I think it's called Suki Hemihana. I think it's called, or I think I pronounced that right.
okay.
But yeah, that's probably why it's so good.
I did not know that, like, because like I say, usually I just skip past all of them, but
Same, yeah.
the first character I played was like, "Okay, let me watch the first, like, opening scene," and then, clicking forward a little bit, I'm like, "Hey, this doesn't suck."
Yeah.
And then by the time I finished the game with one character, I'm like, "You know what? I think I'm gonna play through all these characters."
Yeah.
So, that was a good one. Now, the game that I played with my wife, that would be Luigi's Mansion 2, like the HD remix on the Switch,
Mhm. How
and
was
the
that?
only so it's, Luigi's Mansion, remember on the 3DS, they released the second Luigi's Mansion?
Yeah, how was it? How is it so far?
Um, it is an extremely well done remake, like Luigi's Mansion 3, I think. I put this in the Discord that it was considered by the the gods over at Digital Foundry, the
Oh.
absolute experts in all things visual fidelity. They said that Luigi's Mansion 3 was the best looking Switch game,
Uh-oh.
and I think this uses that engine, and it looks very good. It's beautifully animated. It's a very, very fun game. I do have one major gripe with it that had forgotten about after all these years. It has no save points.
Oh.
So
Mhm.
you just have to like finish each mission to be able to save. And the missions aren't long, but I'm playing it with my wife who has hardly ever played video games. So Like literally, and I'm not saying this because it's great. Like if you could play games with your wife, it's wonderful. But it was kind of interesting. Like she didn't know how to use an analog stick,
Huh.
and or like what the buttons do, or how to coordinate between moving the character and pressing an action button. So she was, and I thought this was really cool about it. She was essentially learning to game as we were playing this. But the downside of having a horrible save system is like she might do 2 rooms. We'll do 2 rooms together. And then she'll be like, okay, that's it for tonight. I got to go to work tomorrow. Okay, great.
Mm.
But if you can't save, that means, you lose all of that progress.
Right.
So I wasn't going to do that because we were having a good time with it. But that meant that I had to keep it in like suspend mode on the
Yeah.
Switch,
Sleep mode
and
and then dock it.
then dock it, and
Yeah.
then I basically lost access to my Switch.
Oh no.
So, and again, like I said, I don't regret it because we were having fun playing it, and it's a game that like we ultimately want to finish. But if you design a game and you don't respect the player's time, it's extremely irritating.
Yeah.
Like they should be just, hey, save anywhere.
Yeah.
So, and apparently
It's been a while
that
since I
was,
played a game like that.
yeah, that was how it worked on the 3DS. So, but nonetheless, that has been a fun experience. Then I imported the Taito LD game collection,
Oh right. I
the
forgot you got
special
that.
edition. Yeah, beautiful special edition, by the way. And the reason why I got it was because the special edition has all of the animations just on a Blu-ray disc. And I think that is the key. Like you want to, if you're a fan of 80s anime, you just want to be able to watch and appreciate the artwork, which you can't really do playing the games. Because they're really just, you know, you kind of get the indicator on the screen, hey, go left. If you push it quickly enough, it progresses to the next scene, and if you don't, you're just dead.
Right.
And you have to start over. So in a way, you kind of have to like brute force the game by memorizing the button combos. But it is like I wouldn't say it's a great game, but it's a great throwback to that time.
Mhm.
So I was playing that, and then Street Fighter Six. I picked up Street Fighter Six, which I think we'll talk about a little bit later on for other reasons. But I'm going to,
I played Street Fighter 6.
yeah,
I
I'm gonna praise Street Fighter Six for now, and I
I
will,
think it was fine.
yeah. So it had unlike Street Fighter Five, which pissed me off when that game came out. Because it had no arcade mode. There
Right.
was no game. It was just an online esport thing.
Right.
This had just a standard arcade mode. Great, that's what I want in a fighting game. But then they had that open world kind of like third person action game where you traverse. What is the city in Final Fight?
Metro City?
Metro City. So you're in Metro City, and you're going around, you're building up your character, and it's pretty clever. It's like you have no skills. You can just basically punch and kick, and then you find a fighter, a Street Fighter character, and you learn like a tiger uppercut, or you learn Chun-Li's helicopter kick.
Mm.
And you just build up your character, you fight other characters, kind of like a Pokemon game,
Right.
and you're just on a quest to meet all of the Street Fighter characters, gain the moves, put together your own move sets. And I thought that was a very clever way to incorporate RPG elements into Street Fighter.
Yeah, I
So,
for the little bit that I played of Street Fighter, I only played the versus mode though, because a friend of mine was telling me how good it was. Um, I I have some pros and cons of Street Fighter 6. Like I do have fun playing Street Fighter 6, but I can admit there's certain things that I don't like about the game. One of the thing is the speed of the characters. I don't like it. because it feels like, I guess it's also because they're using 3D sprites, they have to go into their animations whenever they want to crouch and block, compared to when they want to stand and block. When they're pixels, there's just like weird frames that you read. And in Street Fighter 6, you don't have that. It always felt like I was competing with the speed of my characters whenever I wanted to uh, play offensively or play defensively. That was probably my only gripe. But I got used to it, and I once I got used to it, I started having fun with the game. So those are my things with the game.
Yeah, so I didn't regret buying it at all. Now, am I going to take my character and go through the entire sort of story mode? Probably not, because I just don't have the time. But I definitely appreciated, like, I thought it was a very creative approach to do something different with Street Fighter. At the same time, I could see, like, I don't think I played far enough to get into the FOMO, microtransaction, predatory stuff, because it seemed like there was a lot of character customization
Hmm.
that they could charge you for. Like, as I was upgrading my character, they'd be like, "Oh, you beat, X number of fighters. You can now go buy new clothes." And I would go into the clothes shop, and it was like, "Oh, great, I can get another gray pair of sweatpants."
I have a
But
question though. I have a
yeah,
question for you, really quick. If you could
yeah.
pick a fighting game to play out of the three, like let's say Street Fighter 6, Under Night 2, or Melty Blood, which one would you prefer?
Are we talking about series or just the individual games?
No, just the individual games that you have now.
Um, you know what? It's funny because I just purchased the new, what was it, Under Night game? Well, I
Hmm.
forget what it's called. Sis something or other,
Yeah, yeah,
and that's pretty good. But I would actually go with Melty Blood,
yeah.
like just as a pure fighting game. I would take Melty Blood.
Same here. I've spent a lot of time on Under Night. I spent a lot of time on Under Night. I've been playing Under Night since its release. But there's something about Melty Blood. It's and I think it has something to do with its blend of simplicity and complexity, because that game is easy to play and it makes you look like a star, but there's a complexity to pulling off those combos that you have to figure out for every character.
Yeah, yeah. I would totally agree with that. I think Melty Blood, Lumina, the latest one, is a true gem. Definitely.
We definitely need to find out why that game is so expensive though.
Yeah, I could not. I was looking, and it just, to me, there was no rhyme or reason.
that
Um,
game
be,
that game is so expensive.
because even though it's good, I mean, arguably, it's not that much different from the standard anime style fighter.
Right.
Like it couldn't have been that much more expensive to produce. I mean, maybe it's a licensing thing. That's the only thing that I thought.
Maybe. Yeah. Yeah, maybe.
Now, my last game is kind of a confession, and I feel bad about admitting to playing this next game. But I'm going to give you the opportunity, Jay, to take a guess of what this game might be.
Mhm.
With the caveat that you have not looked at the show notes, have you? Like, I
No.
don't see you in the document. Okay, so you have not looked at this.
No.
So I'm going to say it is a game that has been released in the last year,
Mhm.
and it is a game that is not at home on this show.
Hmm. I don't know. Wait, what console is it for?
It is for the Xbox Series X.
Uh, genre. What genre?
No, no, that's, I'm not gonna give you the genre. Not gonna give you the
I
genre.
I have no clue. I have no clue.
Alright, well, here's my confession. I feel really, really bad to admit this, but I picked up EA Sports College Football 25.
That's not too bad because it's college football. College football is always good.
Well, yeah, that was my thinking, like, this was a nostalgia purchase. Now, in fairness, I didn't actually use my own money to buy it because I had a gift card that I found, like, on the floor of my car.
Okay.
Like, I had dropped my keys, and I'm like, "Wait, what is this?" And it was like, a Costco gift card that I think slipped out of my pocket. So, that was fortuitous, and I'm like, "Hey, free money. What do I do? What do I buy at Costco?" Um, yeah, I was now of course, I'm not gonna go off on a tangent here, but basically, they haven't released a college football game in 10
And
years.
yeah, it's been a while. It's been a long
Yeah.
time.
So, and then I heard that it was coming out, and I started clicking around, and you read and watch all of the YouTube, like, the people who played it early, and they were saying, this is a labor of love. They're taking a total departure from Madden. This game is a long time in the making. It's the return of a great series. It plays totally different. It's gonna have an incredible sort of season and character building system. You could be a coach, you could be a player, build your program over 30 years. It's Madden. It's just Madden.
It's just Madden.
Yep.
That's horrible. I'm
Yep.
so
I
sorry,
was
man.
I was duped. I was duped because I hate the modern Madden games. I just think they're boring. I can't get into them. Like the PS2 Maddens, I thought were just fun video games,
Mhm,
and you can win based on your skill, and then of course which team you pick.
mhm.
Whereas these modern Maddens that say came out PS4 and later are basically like to me, if like all of the action feels scripted,
Right.
and the only skill is like understanding this game situation, picking the right play, or adjusting certain things before the snap.
Mhm.
And I get the fact that there are some people who like that, like they're really into football and they're like, "Oh, if I move the safety here and shift the line and mask the blitz, then I can, to me that's boring."
I
So I got duped and purchased Madden with college teams.
I haven't played a Madden game since '94, so
Whoa.
yeah, it's been a while. But my early friends, my friends from some of my childhood, they used to play it a lot, and I remember just watching them play it, and it just always seemed very formulaic to me. The newer stuff seems even worse now, just like what you're saying, just very boring. And yeah, it doesn't seem like they've changed or made any adjustments to the games. They're just kind of the same as I
Yeah.
remember them.
And in the PS2 era, it was a good sports game from that era was kind of like a role-playing game in the sense that they would give you complete control over the league. You could make all the trades, you could play
Mhm.
the season schedule, you could kind of screw with the abilities of your players, and you could basically like tell your own story, I always
Right.
thought. But they don't allow you to do this. In fact, they don't even let you play like the current season. Like you can say, okay, I'm going to create a coach and start a coaching career and it'll like auto generate a season. But if you're a sports fan, like, wouldn't you want to play this current season?
Right.
But EA doesn't let you do that because they want to get you into like the card game stuff and the microtransactions. So I
I'm
was
so
taken.
sorry, man. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
So forgive me, folks. I will never talk about another sports game again, or at least Western sports game.
Blasphemy.
Yes. So it's interesting. We got a couple of news stories that all speak to the kind of company that EA is: greedy, predatory, uh, and generally ruining gaming.
Yeah.
And I think the first one that we had talked about over the past month was this article in Wired, and I'll put it in the show notes. But it talking about the use of generative AI and how it is replacing jobs in gaming right now. And it almost sounded like gaming was one of the first industries that's really being hit, specifically like 2D artists working in the gaming industry. And I think a lot of the article talked about how they see this massive potential to save money,
Hmm.
by just generating visual assets that are good enough, firing half of the art staff and having a few remaining artists to clean up the output of AI. So I was wondering, like, what was your take on the issue on that article?
Well, from an artist perspective, because I know I don't really talk about my artist past much, but when I've seen some of the AI art, and the problem with AI art is when you look at enough of it, it starts to lose its individuality. I started to notice. It's almost like you can see AI art and just be like, ah, yes, an AI did that now. It's kind of, I wouldn't say it's weird, but it's becoming noticeable now. And usually when you have what's going to happen if they replace a bunch of artists with AI, it's kind of going to lose its soul because having different artists, everyone is unique to their own pen. Their penmanship is all different. So it's definitely going to. I would say this. It's going to go down a road where a bunch of companies are going to make this weird mistake where they're going to fire a bunch of artists. They're going to put this AI thing into work, and then realize that everybody still hires artists because their stuff just looks so much more different than what the AI can produce. AI can't produce soul or spirit, so I mean, you can kind of tell. Like, if you look up AI art now, you can kind of tell what was done by AI. But I did hear that some artists, what they're doing is they'll draw something and use AI as kind of like an assist tool. That's what I've been hearing lately.
So I totally agree with you, and I support the people who are in the industry doing the work with soul and creativity. I don't want to see people lose their jobs, but for the sake of an interesting podcast, I'll just play devil's advocate for a moment.
Hmm.
As video game players, we play a game. Are we really focused on who produced the art in the game that we're playing?
I wouldn't say a lot of gamers are focused on who produced it, but they pay attention to the artistry of the game. I mean, I'll put it to you like this: like when you take a game like Resident Evil 2 remake, right? People say this game looks great. Um, it has all these great graphics and all that stuff, and then you take a game like Signalis. Like there's an artistry behind Signalis that you can't compare to Resident Evil 2. Of course, they're vastly different, but you can tell that there is a certain level of love with Signalis. I mean, you played a little bit of Signalis. Like,
Yeah, no, I could see that. There was definitely an artistic vision that was masterfully executed in that
yeah,
game.
yeah.
Definitely.
I don't think AI is going to be able to pull that off. Because games like I don't want to compare games like Resident Evil 2 to, something indie, but that's like kind of like the way I can kind of get this going is like have you ever played a game called and it's the only one that's popping up in my head right now. Oh, as a matter of fact, I'll use this to the example. Do you think AI art is going to be able to produce a game like Yomawari?
Well, I haven't played Yomawari.
Yeah, you have. You told me you were playing
Oh,
it.
yes.
The one
Sorry,
with
I
the
was thinking
girl
of
with
something else.
with the
Yes.
flashlight and the horror game.
Um, do I? Well, I see. I don't know. Like, if you're going to tell me you have somebody who comes up with the concept for that,
Hmm.
and they maybe don't take all of the visual assets from AI, but say they draw a light post
Yeah.
and they have AI draw some similar light posts for like later in the game. Would I notice that? I don't know.
I don't think we'll be able to notice a light pulse. No, I don't think that.
Yeah.
But
'Cause I think
but
that's what they were talking about. Like, there are a lot of people who work on 2D visual assets and
okay.
that will draw those things. They're saying, well, AI can just do them and then they can touch them up.
Well, from my understanding, the way AI works is that it takes things from. pictures already online and it kind of replicates it, but shifts
Yes.
things around here and there. Um, but that's the thing is that it's not coming from someone's imagination. It's coming from a computer pulling a bunch of stuff off the internet and kind of mashing them together and kind of, like blurring certain lines, and that's what I'm saying is like I feel like if they go full force on this AI thing, there's gonna be a bunch of games that's all gonna look the same, and they're not gonna be interesting to look at. Because I think a lot of people do pick games based off of how they look. If you name games like we said, Signalis, games like Vagrant Story, had a very interesting art style. Um, Other games like what's another game that has an interesting art style? Jet Grind Radio.
Yeah,
I
well,
mean,
what was that, Unicorn Overlord that we were
Unicorn
talking about?
Overlord, Vanillaware,
Yeah.
and all that stuff. Yeah, I don't see a now. Don't get me wrong. I do see big companies going full force into this just to see if it'll work, and I think it would work for the first couple of games, and then, like I said, people are gonna start catching on, and like it's all gonna start looking the same.
Yeah, I mean, when they didn't mention this in the article, but it just kind of jogged my thinking. It was like, okay, I could imagine. Now they were talking primarily about 2D assets, but we'll take a 3D asset like Call of Duty, right?
Right.
If they had AI create a couple of the guns and then they put some kind of light map on it so it looks nice and shiny, or
Hmm.
they, program in ray tracing or something like that, is the Call of Duty player going to notice that the shiny gun that they're killing people with is AI generated and not as creative?
Now, okay, so with that, now I think we're talking about something a bit different because I think they will notice. The question is does a Call of Duty player care about that type of
Well,
stuff?
yeah. Yeah.
I don't think a Call of Duty player cares about that stuff. They just want to know that they have the nice fancy gun. Um Now, um when you let's say a game like uh what what's another game? There's a new what is it? Dragon Quest coming out.
Yes.
And I will will a Dragon Quest will a player who likes Dragon Quest care about that exact same kind of thing? Like let's say if the AI, creates a bunch of characters, but then you pixels there's not too many colors and lines and pixels that you can use that will let's say there's only a finite amount of things you can do with pixels. So with AI, I think at some point it's gonna run out of ideas of how to, replicate characters, and it's gonna
Hmm.
start duplicating it on the map. So when it comes to things with Call of Duty, I think it depends on the like that type of player. Now, a person who plays Dragon Quest, I think they're gonna care about that kind of stuff because Dragon Quest players like to get sucked into their world. RPG players likes to get sucked into their world. When it comes to a Call of Duty player, their goal is to win and
Yeah.
to look cool doing it. That's it. But um, with a Dragon Quest game, a player is playing. They want to get into the world, but when you see five characters come down from the top of the screen, they all look the same because the AI ran out of memory of how to, do separate other characters because it's already populated this world. You know, is it going to work in the end? And I don't think I like I said, I think it's going to work for a little bit and then ultimately, just crumble.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I see, part of me is, if I'm being cynical, is like, well, in video games, we've been doing palette swapping forever.
Yeah.
And I don't, when I was playing Final Fight in the arcade, I wasn't being like, boy, that's not so creative because I just beat that guy who was yellow and now he's green.
Yeah, but the
I'm
thing
like, oh, the green guy. Let me, like, I think, I don't know how perceptive people are when they're kind of like in the heat of the game.
See, the difference is that that was a different time. So, because if you can see people making memes if two characters look the exact same in the exact same room nowadays with today's games.
Yes.
That's completely unacceptable. You can't have multiples of different characters and color swapped. Like look what they do with, we all know that Reptile, Scorpion, and Sub-Zero in the beginning were all the same guy. We all
Yeah.
knew that. But if look how they create them now. Now they're all separate characters. If they did palette swaps today, oh man, NetherRealm Studios is going to feel the hurt all over Twitter. So it's a completely different time.
Yeah. I think you're right
But
about that.
yeah, because I mean, we had no problem playing Streets of Rage and punching 38 Galcias in the face. We have no problem doing that. But today's gamer, no, they like that. That's unacceptable for a $60 game. So for us, it was fine.
Now, I think you're right about that. I'm gonna throw out another example of standardization that I think we have accepted, and that is the standardization of game engines.
Mm.
Like, I think so. You talked about Dragon Quest. I remember when I was playing the Dragon Quest 11. I think that was, if I'm
Was that
not
the one on the
mistaken,
PS? Is that the PS4 one? Is
the
that the one that
PS4
came?
one.
Oh yeah, I love that game. That was so good.
Yeah, as I was playing, I didn't finish it. For whatever reason, it's one of the games that kind of got lost in the shuffle for me. But as I was playing it, I think it was a Unity. It was either, yeah, I think it was a Unity game, if I'm
Hmm.
not mistaken. And I had this distinct feelings like, oh, okay, this is Dragon Quest, but I really feel like I'm playing a Unity game. There
I never
was
felt like that.
something about it where it felt, and in a lot of ways, like, I'm not trashing Unity. And Unreal and all of that. Like, it gives, like, why would you invest in creating a discrete engine for a
Hmm.
project when you have these very capable tools out there that will let you just develop a game easily and port it to everything? So, like, I can't, like, complain about it, but to me, when the platform standardization occurred, you could feel it. Like, I could feel when Yakuza went off of their own proprietary engine
Hmm.
and just started using whatever Unity or Unreal or whatever they use.
So what? Because I'm trying to understand the description. So what does a game in Unity feel like compared to like a game in I guess like the comparison would be what Unreal Engine.
Unreal Engine, I'm not sort of comparing, like, the modern ones, I'm saying the
Mhm.
old engines to today.
Oh, to today.
It's,
Okay.
like, where they've standardized and said, like, "Hey,
Yeah.
if we're gonna make Tekken, we're gonna make it in Unity."
Right. 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 I see what
And
you're saying.
I would say, like, it's an interesting experiment. Maybe this is just me and an internal prejudice,
Hmm.
but go back and say play the last Tekken that was on a proprietary engine, which I think was the Tag Tournament 2 on the Wii U.
Hmm.
I think it came out on PS3 or 4 as well. But I think and then play, like, the latest, like, Tekken 7, Tekken 8. To me, it does feel different somehow.
I've never
Doesn't
played. I haven't played a Tekken game since Tekken 2, Tekken Tag on
Okay.
PlayStation 3. That was the last one I played.
Yeah, I
But
mean, it doesn't ruin the game at all.
mhm.
I don't think, but to me, like, you notice if you play a lot of games that there's a certain feel to the inputs or a certain behavior of the game where you can sense the standardization.
Wait, so is it kind of like how when I was explaining Street Fighter 6, how the motions feel different?
It
Is it
would be
kind of like
something
that?
it would be something like that. Yeah, it would be something like,
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
and I think you're right, like, if you compare Street Fighter 4 Ultra on the PS3
Hmm.
to Street Fighter 6, I think you will feel that difference.
You you know what's weird is like when I was playing Street Fighter 6, in my head, we had just got through playing Street Fighter Third Strike, me and my friends.
Oh, well, that's a big difference. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was just like, why does it feel like there's this weird delay? and it's just because of animations. So I can kind of understand what you're saying is like when you compare like Tekken to maybe Tekken 8, because I even though I don't play these games, I still like watching other people play them. Because my friends, they'll come over and they'll play the new Mortal Kombat, and I hate that game. I hate that game. No, I'm not gonna say I hate that game because I don't really hate it. I've never been a Mortal Kombat fan ever since Mortal Kombat 2. Mortal Kombat 2 was always the height for me. It just felt perfect. Like you didn't have to fix this. But when I played Mortal Kombat 1, I get what you're saying. Like there's certain differences because when you play Mortal Kombat 10, sort of like Mortal Kombat 10. And then when you go to 1, there's something there, and I can't figure it out. But I get exactly what you're saying.
And I'll preface this, like, I'm not a developer,
Hmm.
and I'm just making a supposition here. But my impression is, back in the day, before there was standardization of game engines, like if you and I were planning a game,
Hmm.
we'd probably sit down and say, okay, what do we want to accomplish? What do we want the player experience to be? How do we want it to feel and control? And we create the engine to fit that vision.
Right.
Whereas I think these other tools are out there and we're like, okay, I have a vision. Here's what I want to do. Okay, which engine are we going to use? Okay, Unity. All right, how do we develop this idea in a tool that someone else has created?
Yeah,
And I think
that's how they make games now. They don't even make
yes.
their own engines anymore, right?
No, I don't believe so. And I think we have a potential guest in the works who might be able to explain this better to us. But
Hmm.
yeah, my understanding is these games exist. You can, it's like any other thing, you license out the software and you start working in this engine. It's the same thing with like EA Sports. Getting back to that, they use something called Frostbite,
Yeah.
and they use the same engine for all the different sports games. Well, what would a sport feel like if I'm saying, okay, I'm making a hockey game? Let me create an engine that really replicates ice
Yeah.
hockey, not let me use this engine that I use to make Battlefield and Madden and college football and baseball. So it's, I don't know. I sense it. I feel it somehow.
Now that you mention this, I think the last game that I played that had a game engine built from the ground up was actually by Capcom, and it was for the sequel to Lost Planet. They had made an engine specifically for that game, Lost Planet 2. I forgot what it was called, but they were hyping that engine up for a while
Yeah.
in the seventh generation. I forgot what it was called.
Yeah. I'm blanking on the name, but
It had
I
it had
do.
a cool name. I remember that.
But that game really wasn't that successful. So I could see from a company standpoint, I'm going to build the engine, then I'm going to build the
Hmm.
game, and then it's not going to sell. Just easier to, okay, let me use a ready-made tool. And I like, in a way, I sense that AI is going to kind of be the same thing. Like they're going to standardize around a kind of implementation of AI that I think, the positive could be it may reduce the tedium of certain tasks. And if I can have AI do some like grunt work that was boring anyway, it could unleash some creativity in the developers and the artists. But I don't think companies are going to use it that way. They're going to say, well, how can I fire developers and artists
Right.
and just replace it with AI? They talk in the article about, and I'm blanking on the name now, but there's an actual tool, an AI driven tool that they're rolling out in some game studios where they're calling it like your game studio, and it will do everything. Like it will program, it will create the art assets. You just prompt it and test it and then tweak the output.
That's horrible.
Yeah.
That's horrible. Oh, it's called the
So,
MT Framework was the Capcom one.
okay.
Yeah, that's what it was called.
MT
Okay.
framework.
Yeah.
So, I feel like it is a danger. I'm pretty sure it's going to accelerate all of these job losses that we've talked about over the past year. But it's sad because I don't think it necessarily needs to be a negative. If you just said, "Hey, we're going to keep our people on staff and have them do interesting things with the output of AI."
I can see a weird, I would say, kind of developmental war can sort of happen where there'll be indie devs versus, big corporations. There'll be, the artists versus the corpos. I can kind of
Yeah.
see that happening for sure, because some of these I found out recently that a lot of these studio heads that were, responsible for some of these big titles back then, have all left and created their own studios, and they're making games right now that a lot of people aren't paying attention to. So I can kind of see that happening. That like, there's going to be a video game renaissance, but it's going to be for like low budget games, and I think I can kind of see history sort of repeating itself. You have corporations jump away from AAA games, they go off and find something else to leech off of. And then indie devs will make their indie games, and it'll start off small, and then the corporations will come back, give them money, and, the cycle will start over again. Couple years. Years from now. I can see that happening.
Okay. Well, you have a habit of being dead on with your predictions.
Let's hope that I'm not right about that. Let's hope that they just go off and do something else. Go back to movies or something.
Yeah. So we will see how that plays out. And then our next news story is one that I don't know, this may get us canceled, kicked off of our platforms.
Uh-oh, what is this one?
Well, no, this is the kind of the topics you've been sending me of late. These uh, DEI initiatives in Japanese game studios.
Oh,
A- And
yeah.
you'd sent me a couple things. We're like, okay, we need to talk about this now. Like I was not aware that this was going on because I tend to avoid like the major stuff, major Western releases.
Hmm.
College Football 25 is a perfect example of why that was a good idea. So I wasn't aware that this was going on over here, and apparently, and I'm going to see if I can summarize a number of these videos, and we'll link to a couple of them in the show notes. But basically, I think Capcom was one of a developer who was on the one hand consulting with Western, I don't know what you want to call them, Western kind of
Consulting agencies?
woke, yeah, consulting agencies, woke consultants to bring a type of progressive mindset to their games, but then also trying to be, to support like internal diversity initiatives to bring non-Japanese folks to Japan to work at Capcom to give their games a more sort of representative quality.
Right.
And I don't know if were there other developers who were doing that as well in Japan, but
Um, I think Capcom was the only one right now that everyone knows about. Um, I didn't know about this either because I, I haven't bought a Capcom game in forever. But I just found it weird that they're doing this again because I feel like they did this before in the seventh generation where they tried to cater too much to the American audience and they almost went bankrupt. Do you remember that?
I do. I remember Capcom was in a very bad spot. Yeah.
Yeah, it just feels like they're doing it all over again. And I mean I can sort of understand. It's like they make their games mostly for a, I'm not going to say that they cater to us. I think they cater to a worldwide demographic. They're very
Yes.
mainstream. Um they're from what I've heard is that the Japanese can be somewhat xenophobic. That's what I've heard. So they tend to stay within their bubble. So they probably think that this is what the world wants. So they're probably jumping on this because they probably think that this is which way the world is going, and not knowing that there's so much pushback against it. And that's usually what happens when you don't have the right people around in your corners. Is that you think you're moving in the right direction and it just happens to be wrong, and they're not remembering that they did this before and it went completely south.
Yeah, I mean, I think this has always been like just thinking back in the history of gaming. I think the Japanese developers, when they tried to sell into Western markets, always had a little difficulty reading the sensibilities of the West, and like so you would have games that were visibly different here compared to what they were in Japan. Like think one of the early Persona games, right? They had to sanitize that before it came over here.
Was that Capcom?
No, 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 not Capcom, but
Oh,
just the like just other examples like
well,
Persona,
yeah.
right? I think the first Persona on the PlayStation
Yeah, Revelations Persona. Yeah, they had to cut a lot of things out of that.
yeah, so
Yeah,
they're trying to understand like what will set off a Western buyer or what will push a Western buyer away. Like, back in our day, it was, well, what will anger the moms who might see their kids playing
right.
this game? And so now they're kind of doing the same thing. They're saying, hey, what will offend Western progressive sensibilities? Let's manufacture our games to avoid that and sell to the widest audience. That
I don't think it's gonna turn out the way they think it is. I
no,
think this is gonna
no.
end up very badly for Capcom.
Yeah. So I think there's like two issues. One is bringing in non-Japanese talent to
Right.
Japan to work in these traditional Japanese companies, and the other is the value or the problems with DEI perspectives in video games themselves. And so, like, if we look at the first one, I I don't think it's bad to say, "Hey, we've hired one type of person." Like, if there are other qualified people to make our games, like, yeah, let's hire them. But where I see the problem is losing the Japanese identity.
Right. Yeah, 100%.
And yeah, and as a player as someone who loves import gaming, I love it because it is not my culture, and I can escape this culture and
Mm,
these sensibilities and experience something that's foreign, that's different, and that maybe I don't fully understand all of the Japanese elements in the game, but I like being the outsider. I like experiencing something new. And so I would say hire all the people you want, but make sure they're making a Japanese game.
yeah, 1,000% agree. One of the things that I think Square Enix, I feels like needs to also do this. They need to focus on selling products in their own country first and catering to the demographic there because over in America, it's actually around the world, everyone is into anime and Japanese culture. So I think that they should figure out the market there first and then ship it to us. Because I think when you try to please, I the issue is that so America is a huge melting pot of different cultures. You're not going to be able to please everyone. It's
Yeah.
impossible.
Yeah, and I mean, and I think the tragedy of it is Japan, I've always seen it as like one of the last um insular unique pop cultures of the world.
Yeah.
Like if you go to Europe and as I've spent a lot of time in Europe in my life, and I mean, yeah, the sports are a little different, but you know what? Hollywood movies are super popular. The experience of pop culture in Europe is really not that different from the US. But you go to Japan and like these are different sensibilities, different genres, truly different cultural products. And I don't want to lose that because I think that's what makes the world interesting. It's like I can read a manga and I'm not going to get that anywhere else other than from Japan.
Yeah.
Now I realize that, Korea has their own and stuff like that
Korea has been doing a very good job. Wait, Korea and China, I think.
and China, yeah.
Yeah, I
So
think they've been picking up the slack from what, Japan has been, losing.
yeah, I mean, so there are other cultures like that. Those are two. I mean, hey, let's face it. I'm sure North Korea has a fascinating pop culture.
Yeah.
You may not want to watch it, and if you went over there, you would be in prison. But yeah, like for the most part, the world is becoming very standardized, and these countries are a little bit different. I don't want Japan to lose that.
Yeah.
So now the broader issue in some of these things that we had looked at is just the the DEI kind of politics just seeping into games,
Yeah.
particularly through a company that I didn't even know existed, but came up in a lot of these videos, Sweet Baby Inc.
Yeah, I
And
recently found out about them too. Everybody keeps
yeah,
talking about them.
and so now there's like databases of games like that they worked on, and I don't know if to me they're not. They can't just be the only ones because there are no Capcom games on here
No.
that I saw. So there, it's not just these people, but there is seems to be a huge backlash against this.
Yeah. It's
And
ginormous. It's so loud that I don't pay attention to that stuff. Even I heard it.
yeah,
It's been crazy. And yes, I don't think their Sweet Baby is the only one. I think there's like three more companies under three different names that basically do the exact same thing. You know, they basically inject politics into companies' games and change things. Apparently, they're the reason why female characters are unattractive. Apparently, that's
yeah.
their
Well,
thing.
we were looking at that this morning. Like you had found some source that showed like the traditional character and then the current version, and yeah, there has been a desexualization of female characters,
Yeah.
which look, I think I said on a couple episodes ago, like sensibilities change, and the Dead or Alive series, right? They had the crazy boob physics.
Hmm.
I mean, that also was unrealistic, but they're going in the opposite direction and making characters that look, like they're the Hobbit or something, like the Lord of the Rings people.
You know what it is? The characters are unappealing.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like the point of making an interesting character, and I hate to say it, like all of the characters that come out in through all of the DEI stuff, they're just not appealing. And the thing is that they think they're doing a service for women, but even women don't like the characters. Unfortunately, the way the world works is that sex sells. That's just how it works. Being sexy also sells. If it didn't, Hugh Jackman wouldn't have torn off his shirt in that new movie. I mean, that type of stuff does sell. Women in sexy, like when you go to a convention, you do not see even women. You do not see women cosplaying unattractive characters. They cosplay attractive characters. um I haven't seen a single thing on the internet with these new DEI characters, anyone cosplaying them like at all.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know. I think the cosplaying audience, like, I just think they're attractive women who cosplay just to cosplay. But yeah, no, I mean, I
Yeah, but
do, I get
what
your
I'm saying
point.
is
Yeah,
what I'm saying is like they do cosplay to cosplay, but they always cosplay attractive characters. Like I remember like they'll cosplay the new Harley Quinn. There's a girl who cosplays Cammy. There's also a girl who cosplays what's her name from Lollipop Chainsaw?
yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
like those are the cosplays. Like you don't see, all right. Have you seen any girl cosplay the big girl from Borderlands? I haven't.
I don't even know who the big girl from Borderlands
Yeah,
is. I never really
ex-
played
yeah,
Borderlands.
because no one cosplays her either. So it's like no one cosplays unattractive characters. Like even when like dudes cosplay a character, they usually cosplay Cloud or Sephiroth.
Yeah,
Like like you barely see like a Barrett or you'll barely see a Sid Highwind. You know, you don't see those characters because
yeah.
they're not beautiful.
I went on their website, and so they'll, they talk about having fair standards of representation so that marginalized populations can see themselves represented in games. But I don't know. Like, how do you feel? Is this really an issue? Because
Uh,
personally, I don't want to see myself in a game. Like, I don't need to play a fat middle-aged character.
I th-
Like, I want to be Ken from Street Fighter. Damn it.
I don't care about seeing myself in a game. I don't. But I from what I've been hearing, a lot of women like to see themselves in video games. Now, this is the issue that I'm coming with. When you look up pictures of a lot of these developers, they're not ugly. Some of them are actually kind of cute. So I'm like, so why are you making ugly characters and saying we want representation? But it's like, then represent yourself because you're cute. Like, what are you doing? Like, a lot of that stuff doesn't make any sense to me. So I guess they're looking out for the girl who doesn't look as good as they do. So is that the representation? Because that doesn't really make any sense to me.
Yeah, I think it goes like when I was kind of looking through all this stuff, I think the broader point is, for me anyway, is that anytime a political ideology sort of makes its way into any kind of cultural product, it becomes a less interesting product. Like
Yeah.
ideology, like pure ideology, like if you watched a movie from the Soviet Union,
Hmm.
like where there's a clear, like, communist worker hero type character, and that character never changed. It's flat, it's uninteresting.
Yeah.
And so I don't know that games necessarily should shy away from politics, but make the themes interesting. Don't force a particular perspective on players. Just create an interesting character. Like if you wanted to create, a transgender character, don't just have the character there because they're transgendered. Have the character there because they're interesting,
Right. Yeah.
and let us experience the game that way. So I was kind of thinking like, and this is probably only like we can do this with modern games, but have you played games that have certain elements of diversity, but that were non-ideological, like that did something different, but we're not necessarily catering to this one particular perspective?
That comes off the top of my head. I can't really think of one off the top of my head because of all the games I do play.
Yeah, I mean,
But
I was thinking of two, possibly three that come to mind.
what are
First
they?
one was that Miles Morales Spider-Man game.
I didn't play it.
So, PlayStation 5, it was like one of the first games I got on the PlayStation 5.
Hmm.
I'm not a big Spider-Man fan, although I had played the previous one on a little bit on PlayStation 4.
Yeah, I
But,
played that one.
this was a game that, had minority characters from New York City, and it had that, for lack of a better word, woke art style that you were just talking about.
Right.
But they were, for the most part, I thought, well-written characters, and it was a fun game. Like, it didn't compromise the quality gameplay of swinging through New York City and, having great third-person action.
Right.
And I felt like the characters and story they were telling just kind of worked within the narrative that game had.
Mm.
So I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I guess, they're taking Spider-Man out of the standard Spider-Man story and creating a new Spider-Man from a different part of New York City with a different background, but it still works as Spider-Man."
Hmm.
Um, the other one that I was thinking about is Cloudpunk. I don't know if you've played this.
That's the taxi kind of one,
The
right?
the taxi one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I thought the block, or was it voxel or block style, was very convincing. The
Hmm.
city was nice. I like that cyberpunk element. Um, I don't know if it was developed by women or, but it had that sort of strong female character.
Hmm.
And I just think it struck me as, this is a different perspective than I usually play.
Mm.
Like, it's not a hero necessarily. It's not this Scarlett Johansson, Marvel, Superwoman type person. It's just a person trying to get by, doing these cab runs and getting sucked into a corporate conspiracy.
Mm.
And I felt like, okay, I could see like this is a well done game. It's not bludgeoning me over the head with a particular ideology, but it's a very different character. So those would be two. The third one I was thinking of was like, was it Brother Tale of Two Sons? I don't know
Oh,
if you,
I've seen the game. I've never played it though, but
yeah,
I
I
know the
played it
game.
very briefly when it came out. And I guess the point, although I haven't played it to the end, so I might be off on this. But you were controlling both characters, one with one analog stick, one with the other. And I think the message was like, what is it like to be a twin?
Mm.
And I think, well, maybe I shouldn't, I can spoil it because it's an old game. I think one of them dies eventually.
Hmm.
And you know how they say, like, it's when you have a twin, it's like having like another appendage.
Right, right.
And what happens when you can no longer use that analog stick? Like,
Mm.
okay, Twin is not a DI initiative, but it's interesting perspective. It used a game to give me a perspective about something that I wouldn't otherwise know.
Mm.
Like those are interesting. So I would be supportive of that type of creativity of telling a different kind of story, but I don't want political battles
Right.
in my games.
Yeah, I'm the same. I don't want to be reminded about the world that's already around me when I'm playing a video game. Like that's basically it. And the other thing is that a lot of the gaming industry's writers right now are mostly women, and
Really?
from apparently
I did not know that.
in the AAA space, a lot of them are women now. Apparently women have a I don't want to generalize, but they say that a lot of women when they write, they tend to write themselves into their stories. They don't write characters, you know. I'm not saying all are like that. I'm saying that some that like, they say that's a lot of women do that. um
Oh man,
but
you're gonna get so canceled for that one.
probably,
Yeah.
but it's okay. It's
Hey, the
fine.
8 people that listen to this on Spotify, 4 of them are coming after you.
That's fine. But uh when you when you put there's a thing in writing that I've learned when I wrote my first two books, is that you don't write yourself into the story. You learn from experiences of others and you write other people. You don't write yourself.
Well, that is
um
true, yeah, it's hard to do as a writer.
yeah, it is because you're trying what's hard to do is to keeping yourself out of the plot.
Mm,
It's really difficult to do. But the other thing is, write stories that people want to read or listen to or watch. Don't write I mean, you can write what you like, but other people have to like it too, you know? Because at the end of the day, you're creating art for an audience to look at. And the other thing is that you shouldn't defend your artwork. Your artwork should speak for itself. A lot
mm.
of these people are very upset when they get criticized for what they create on the internet. If you did bad, you did bad. That's just it. Like my years of being a graphic designer, I got rejections after rejections after rejections. I did bad, but I only got better with every criticism that I got. And eventually that, landed me in my job in the professional field. But you have to be able to take those criticisms, and a lot of these people, they interject their politics because all they want to do is get their point across. And it's like, instead of creating entertainment, what I fear is going to happen the longer that this happens, when the pendulum eventually swings back, people are going to look back on everything that happened in these past 10 years, and they're going to say, let's not let that ever happen again. And it's going to eliminate a lot of future roles for certain genders in the future.
Well, I mean, I think you're onto something because I was reading in the New York Times this week, they were and I, hate Hollywood, so I didn't really read the article to
Mhm.
its, to the end, but it was basically talking about how, progressive woke politics in Hollywood actually stopped selling and
Yeah.
kind of the message audiences were sending was just entertain us. And and this is where I stopped reading, whatever movies are coming out this summer, like you talked, I think there's the Wolverine one,
Hmm.
and they mentioned a couple others that I hadn't heard of. Like, these are the first batch of films that are just trying to be entertaining and are not having political messaging.
Yeah. It's just trying to be an entertaining film instead of doing that stuff.
So, I mean, the same thing could happen to games. Like, the games are
Definitely.
just a little behind in that.
But you know what worries me, and it worries me because um, it worries me for these people. A lot of them tend to go on Twitter and they show their true selves. Like they're always angry all the time. They're always, being combative. Let's say the pendulum swings back. When they try to find a job, I hope that they don't think that other companies that are moving in a different culture spectrum are not going to look at their pasts and use that against them, like just not to hire them.
Mm. Yeah, well, hopefully, yeah, that's hopefully that doesn't come to pass, but that's a problem.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but I've always been someone who's talked about accessibility. Like,
yeah.
you want your games to attract the broadest audience, and you want people to play games the way they want to play it. So, like, you could have a toggle. Like, if people like uh crazy over the top sexuality in Street Fighter, like, toggle
Yep,
that on. If
yep.
people don't like that, toggle it off. Just like I say, hey, give us ranges of difficulty, give us encounter rate sliders, save states everywhere. Let us experience your work at a pace that works for us.
I like booby physics. I don't care.
Yeah, the you listen, turn the booby physics on. Like, at its core, like, it has to be a good game.
There was a game and I forgot what it was, but there's a game that actually has a sliding scale where you can turn up the booby physics or turn them down to like slow it down a bit. But I forgot what game that was. I'm trying to remember. It probably was Dead or Alive actually.
Yeah, and I think if you have like, if your core game is good, eventually you're not going to want all of the crazy sexual flourishes. Like, eventually you just want to play the game. I'll give you a perfect example. You had recommended some of like the Senran Kagura Peach
Oh
games,
yes.
and
Yes.
so I was playing the pinball one.
Oh, I didn't even know they
Uh,
had a pinball one.
oh, really? Maybe, yeah. Well, you had told me about the beach, like
I told you
the
about
water gun.
Yeah, Peach Beach Splash, the water gun game.
Okay, well, they have a pinball one
Oh,
where
that's I gotta get that now.
so I picked that up, and I'm playing. I'm like, okay, this is, after the first 5 minutes, okay, this is absurd. But as I was playing, I'm like, this is not a bad pinball game. It actually took a lot of the sort of style of a pachinko game,
Okay,
and a
yeah.
lot of like the pacing of a pachinko game, like
Hmm.
where you're getting to different fever stages and trying to, get the final cinematic. And
Hmm.
I thought it was kind of hypnotizing. And I was like, if this game did not have certain content in it, like, I could actually bring my wife in and we could sit there and play it because it's a fun game.
I'm gonna speculate right now. They're gonna make a Senran Kagura. Um, what's that Chinese checkers game you like so much?
Oh,
What's it called?
Mahjong.
Mahjong. They're gonna make a
Hey,
Senran
Mahjong
Kagura
isn't
Mahjong
Chinese
game.
checkers. It's more complicated.
Not Chinese checker. Well, I don't know how to describe it if I don't remember the name. So that's the only way. But you got it.
Yes, I got. Well, yeah.
Senran Kagura Mahjong is coming. Watch.
Let's put
I'm
it this way:
calling it right now.
the mahjong genre, is one of the worst offenders when it comes to un unrealistic portrayals of women.
Oh wait, yeah, you were the one that showed me the strip mahjong. I think I got
Well,
that.
yeah,
I learned about that from you.
yes, a lot of mahjong games have taken that tact, but it's unfair because some of those games are actually really good mahjong games because the idea behind it, I've always said this, isn't to show you, titillating images of women. It's actually to create gameplay scenarios where you get hands that are like the best hands you could ever get in your life.
Mm.
And so there's an excitement to the actual gameplay if you understand how to play Mahjong. And then, of course, if you win, you get the little bonus of seeing someone in a bikini, but it doesn't need that.
But it's there for the
But
extra selling value. Okay.
yes, yeah, it is. I don't want, actually, that would be funny to get Sweet Baby Inc. to consult on Senran Kagura Mahjong.
Oh God.
That would be, I would actually pay to see that because I think that would be fun.
Yeah, I would pay to see that because I would love to see what they do to the game. That
Yeah,
would be great.
super real Mahjong cross Sweet Baby.
All of the Senran Kagura girls have hoodies on.
Yeah, yeah. One is suffering from long COVID and,
Oh my
has to
God.
sit like a blanket, but can still
Ah,
make it to the Mahjong table.
yeah.
So, yeah, well, I think we kind of covered that issue.
Yeah, yeah.
How do you feel about jumping to It Came from Japan?
Uh, I would love to
Yeah.
if my shipment had arrived already, but I don't have I don't have an import shipment until what is it? The end of this month. Did you get anything from Japan?
I have, well, yeah, I've gotten some stuff. It's funny. I'm the only person who, well, maybe not the only person, but very few people will do this. You would.
Hmm.
You're going to Japan. You're going to Japan, and so you place import orders right before you go and right before you get back
Yep.
because there's stuff you're not going to fit, so you're trying to get some stuff ordered so you can focus on shopping when you're there.
Yes.
And I definitely did that. I think I talked about this on one. Did I talk about this in one of the episodes? I got the Sega Hardcore Historia
I don't
before I
remember that.
left.
Yeah, I
Oh,
don't
okay.
remember that.
So are you familiar with the Hardcore Historia?
No, 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 no.
So this is a tribute book collection to Sega that was released. I don't know when it was released. I want to say maybe 10, 15 years ago. And it has basically like the history of Sega. It then has a magazine or a book that chronicles every magazine cover of the Japanese official Sega magazine
Oh,
from, I
nice.
think, from like Genesis to Dreamcast. And then as a little bonus, it has like little plastic replicas of all the Sega systems.
Hmm.
So like little miniature Genesis
Okay.
32X,
Okay.
and
That's
it's
really
it's just,
cool.
yeah, just a really well done book, but it's a big package, it's a heavy package, and I was like, if I see this there, I know I'm going to buy it. So let me just order it so that I don't have to actually carry it home.
Right.
And then when I got back, I was like, there were two things that I wasn't able to get. And one was I wanted to get something with Initial D. Are you familiar with Initial D?
Yes, one of my favorite Japanese, street racing mangas of all time.
Yes. So I couldn't find anything, so I bought one of this like large acrylic uh figure slash standing art piece with it's that famous image of like Takumi sitting on the ground outside the Hachiroku, I think the 8-6, like when he goes to the beach with that girl.
Hmm.
So I got that. And then there was one game that I was searching for that I absolutely could not find. And I am blanking on the full title. It was one of the games we talked about earlier in the episode, or in I think our first episode, and it was Tohu Luna Midnight, something like that. And
Oh, wait.
what was that game called? I'm
Is it the Toho it's kind of like a fighter, a 2D fighter with shmup mechanics in it?
no, it
That
is
one?
a
Oh, okay.
it is a Castlevania type game.
Oh,
And
a Scarlet Remelia Symphony? Kamaju Scarlet Remelia Symphony, that
no,
one?
it has like Tohu in the title.
Mhm.
And I should probably skip and take this out in editing, but at hour 3, no one's going to be listening to this anyway. So, what the heck is this thing called? Anyway, it's basically like it's very similar to Symphony of the Night.
Okay.
And it is, good lord. I don't think I was able to put it in my GameEye app because it was unrecognized.
The only one that I know that looks like it's not Toho Luna Nights. It's not that,
Yes,
is it?
Luna Nights, that's it.
Because I love Toho Luna Nights is a game that I need in my collection. I don't have it, and I regret not pre-ordering it.
Yes, I couldn't find it anywhere over there, and I
Oh, you
was
couldn't?
like,
Oh, wow, it's everywhere when I look on the internet. Like, well, the Japanese version, the limited edition.
uh,
I need the
yeah,
box.
no. Oh, I just got the kinda regular game.
How is it? Did you
Um,
play it yet?
yeah, I played the first, I don't know, first, 2 levels, and I was like,
Mm,
"Oh, cool, this kinda reminds me of playing Symphony of the Night."
okay,
I mean, it
yeah,
has
I
some
need it.
more complex systems, but basically that was the feel that I got. Nice little art style, kinda pixely, but still, very, very engaging to look at, and yeah, I gotta scan this into my GameEye app. I don't know why I didn't do that.
I'm shocked that that game is actually getting an English release.
Really?
I,
Who's releasing it?
yeah, I forget. I think it might be PM Studios. Maybe it's them, but I forget. But I did see it on Amazon. Um, it's still
Really?
it should still be there, but yeah, I was actually shocked by that. I was like, wow, this game is get yeah, but remember I said this before, like everything is coming out on the Switch. It's like on the Switch, like everything is coming out on the Switch.
Yeah.
I feel like the Switch is it is taking up replacement of the PlayStation Vita, because I feel like the Vita was supposed to be this console to have everything on it. That
Yes.
remi-
And
that that reminds me. I have a question for you, and before we
yes.
close out of this, I think this is a pretty good question to ask. I wrote it down, but this is also for the listeners too, because I think this is a pretty interesting thing to think about for the future. But do you think that remakes will affect the prices of the originals? Because I've been hearing a lot of people talk about the Silent Hill 2 remake and how they're just disappointed in where it's going, and this company doesn't know what they're doing with the game and all this stuff. I'm not interested in the remake. I don't really care. But I was wondering, because there's so many remakes that are coming out that people are just not happy about. And I'm wondering if the 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 remakes that are failing are going to make the original game's releases spike in price because the remakes are so bad.
Hmm. That is an interesting question. It's probably something that, we could research at least to start. Like there have been games, very valuable games that eventually got a remake and we could see what happened with the prices. The one that comes to mind I think is Earthbound.
Earthbound got a remake?
Well, or a re-release. You're talking about like a pure from the ground up remake
I'm
or
talking about like a remake, like, or a remaster. Like, all right, so you have the ones that come off the top of my head is I'm not going to talk about the Resident Evil 2 because apparently that was good.
okay.
But Resident Evil 3, a lot of people were disappointed with that. The other one is Silent Hill 2. Um, what was the other one? Oh, and Dead Rising is getting another remake. or
Yes,
re-release or whatever.
yeah, that was one of the in one of the videos you sent me that they were
Oh my,
complaining about that. They had some DEI stuff in that.
yeah. Um,
Um,
the thing is that so I was looking at price charting for Silent Hill 2, and I noticed that it was at like $115 at some point, and then it bumped up to like 130, and then it kind of came back down, and then when the remake got announced, it kind of went down again. And then when they released the gameplay trailer, I checked the price again and it spiked up to like $150. And I was like, okay, so I wonder if depending on how future developers treat classic game remakes, if it's going to affect the original releases.
no, I
I,
think that's an example of, yeah. I mean, I guess when there's some controversy over the game, over the
Mhm.
remake, people are going to say, "Oh, well, that's not what I remember. I wanted to play a game like I remember it, but better."
Right,
And then they
right.
kind of go back, and you know how the internet works. So I could kind of see that.
Even with the what is it? Final Fantasy 7? I thought Final Fantasy 7 was going to drop down to about a $20 game after what was the
Oh,
remake?
the first, yeah, the
The
first,
the first remake. I thought it was going to
yeah.
drop down to price. It actually went up, which was hilarious to me. Um Final Fantasy
Eh,
7, let me see. Final Fantasy 7 used to be like a $30 game. Let me see. Price charting. So it's about 41 bucks. 35. The last one sold for $41. And it's like slowly, let me check the gauge. Yeah, so before, well, in 2010 it was super expensive. It was above $100.
really?
Yeah. See this. Yeah, I see this large spike over here. It's about, yeah, 93 bucks. 93, and then it started going down as the years went by, and then in 2020 went up to a $60 game. And
Hmm.
then it started shuffling between 30 to 60 bucks. And right now, oh wow. One sold last month for $51.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm looking
So,
at that now. It's really fluctuated. Like I have
yeah,
a complete in box. Like I don't have the like a brand new.
yeah,
But if you look at the 5-year trend, it's basically just all over the place.
yeah. And
Um,
I'm wondering if this is going to continue to happen. Like people don't like the new stories, so they want to go back and play the originals because those are the stories that were good.
it's interesting. Like I loved Final Fantasy VII as a kid. It may still be like my personal favorite game of all time. Like looking back at just the experience that I had with it, and I played the first remake that they came out with,
Hmm.
and I had a strange feeling. Like I actually thought it was very good. Like the combat system was really good,
Hmm.
and to explore Midgar and actually have HD, 4K, whatever the graphics were. I enjoyed that, although I felt like it lacked a lot of the soul of the first game, of the original,
Right. Right.
but it turned out to be so different an experience that I don't see them as connected in any way. Like,
You,
it didn't playing the new one didn't make me want to go back and play the old one necessarily. It was like, "Okay, this is a totally different direction." And I enjoyed it, but I have the nice memories of the old one. So it wasn't like, "Oh, this sucks. I gotta go back to the old one."
you know what it is for me is I never played the remake because I just felt like I didn't really desire to. But when I looked at the remake and I was watching all the videos that people were putting up, one of the things I noticed that it did lack that the original had was wonder. Like the original has a like an enormous amount of wonder to it. Like you
Yeah.
want to know more about, Midgar. You want to know more about Avalanche. You want to know more about this. But the problem is that when you make a remake, we already know all these characters, so there's no wonder to it. And I know that in the remake, they added a bunch of other characters to the story. The problem is that is that we all already eventually know where the main cast is gonna go. And there's been so many different forms of media with Cloud and Avalanche doing stuff. So it's like we already know all this stuff. I mean, I
Yeah,
no, go ahead.
the first moment, like I remember looking forward to this game, and you think about coming from the Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis era, and you had your PlayStation, and I remember playing Final Fantasy VII and thinking like, "Oh my god, what a step forward
Yeah,
for the JRPG genre." And I was like, and it's so cool. It's in this modern setting, this city, and I thought the whole game was in the city.
yeah.
And then when you
Everyone
get
did.
to yeah, when you get to that part where you leave the city, like you said, wonder, "Oh my god, this game is so big. What am I gonna find out there?" That's a moment that will never be replicated.
No, never. Because remember how much time you spent in Midgar?
Yeah.
It almost felt like you spent so much time there that you actually started to like understand the way the city worked.
Yes.
It's like, oh, I'm just gonna go over here to go check this out again. All right, let me go up to this town here, and you spent so much time. And when you finally beat that boss on the bridge and you leave, you're kind of like, oh man, I can't believe I got to the end of the game. And you're like,
Yeah.
no. I think for me, the biggest wow moment is the first mentioning of Sephiroth and the Shinra Corporation, the giant tower, the first time.
Yeah.
You never see him. He's just mentioned. Like he just leaves a wake of destruction everywhere. And then when
Yep.
you finally leave the city, when you finally leave Midgar and you go to the ranch and you have to go through that cave and what he does to that giant snake on the spike
Yes.
and multiple of us, multiple players back in the day would always try to fight that snake and get instantly wiped. So we know how hard this snake is. But the thing is that if he's as one guy is able to do that to the snake, it's kind of like this mystery of like, whoa, this guy is like really, really strong. I was hoping to see that in the remake, and I heard that he just shows up somewhere in the Midgar facility, like super early. And it's
Yeah.
like, so you basically took away the suspense of seeing him again. You know, it's complete. It's like pulling the air out of a vacuum. Like if you're in like a cockpit of like an airplane, it just sucks out all the air like immediately. You're like, oh, there goes Sephiroth. You know,
Yeah, I
there's no
mean,
build up.
that was a letdown. I I felt in a way like they couldn't kinda give you that wonder back
Yeah.
because as you said, we knew what the story was, so focusing it in Midgar and then saying, "Hey, we're gonna release, different editions of it, and you'll explore different places eventually," like, I don't know if they're ever gonna do that, but I guess it made sense to a degree, and I think if you play it, like, their the combat system that they created was really, really good,
I have to try it.
and
I have to test it out for myself.
actually more enjoyable than the original.
Okay.
But now that might be sacrilegious, but yeah, the original was just your typical turn-based classic RPG system. This was a nice mix of action and still menu-driven strategy,
Mm.
and they pulled it off nicely. But yeah, I miss those. What I miss the most, or one of my favorite memories about Final Fantasy VII, is that when it first came out, I didn't get it right away, but I remember a couple kids got it on release day, and they would talk about it in the lunchroom like every day. Hey,
Yep.
what did you find? And then I finally got it, and I would, a couple of other guys got it after this original group, and then we would be like, "Did you get to that part? Yeah, wait, what did you find? And when you went to this place?" And we would just be retelling our adventures from the night before every other day. And I feel like that's something that, of course, you
Yeah.
can have those discussions. Like you could play Baldur's Gate 3, which I actually did play. I could have put that on the list.
I mean, well,
Uh,
we kind of did it with Tokyo Xanadu.
we did, but I'm talking about like you're playing it at the same, like we're talking about each place,
Yeah, I know what you mean.
any
I know what you mean.
any game can do that, but I don't sense that kids do that necessarily these days.
Um,
When you're
prob
scrolling TikTok and you got
probably
all
not.
the
Probably not.
yeah,
I'm telling you, man, video
so
games are gonna be the old man's hobby.
yeah. Well, like I said, we can't have that because we need the kids to like video games so that they can become rich and we can sell the video games to them as we're deteriorating in our rocking chairs. That's the goal. So, kids,
That is
if
the
you're
goal.
listening, you want all of these games that we're talking about. It will make you a very happy 32-year-old someday when you get your bonus. For the love of God, I'm depending on this. I'm going to play and have fun until I'm about 70, and then I'm going to sell them to you and ride off into the sunset. So, on that note, I think we will end this month's episode. And I'm really looking forward to the fall because I know, Jay, you have got some stuff coming in. You're going to have an epic
Uh,
fall.
yeah. August isn't August actually crept up. It actually crept up in yen price. But my biggest shipment is in September. It beat October by a couple of yen. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
we'll just leave it at that, a couple of yen, just in case
yeah,
any family members are listening. We'll.
yeah. Well, the wife already knows.
She already knows?
Well. Hold up. I should clarify. She knows to a degree.
Okay. Well, yeah. Like I said, I always like to intercept the mail if I can.
I hear you.
But it didn't work out today. She got to the mail, and I had some explaining to do.
I bet you did. I'm gonna have some explaining to do in. Let me see. What's today's date? In 3 weeks, I'm gonna have some explaining to do.
Yeah, well, I put in a big Play Asia order, actually 2, so that's gonna come hopefully by the end of August, and then after that, I'm okay, but, I know I'm gonna be buying things. I'm gonna get that Astro Bot game.
Dude, we're gonna buy as soon as you click off of this recording. We're gonna buy.
Yeah, that's true too. When we
And we do this every night.
yeah, kinda like the Wizard of Oz, you can see behind the curtain. When we stop the recording, we actually start shopping at, our various sources, and then within a week to 2 weeks, we're explaining to our wives, "Well, it's just research." That's what I say.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
It's
like, "I
just
have a podcast, it's just research, you
that's
know?"
that's actually a good excuse. I'm gonna write that down.
Yeah, how could we be a good import gaming podcast if we don't constantly import these games at great expense and play them? Like, no one's gonna listen to us otherwise.
Right?
So, yeah. So, with that, folks, we're going to sign off and start shopping until next week or next month. Next month.
Next month. Good night,
Next month.
everybody.
Good night.